And I'll take this opportunity to thank everyone for being here and sticking it through. I know we're already an hour into the show and we've only gone through one class. We will be moving through things a little faster, but we did say from the get-go that this was going to be a long show. And we are going to go into detail. We are going to throw in all of our rantings and ravings. We are going to be as thorough as we feel that a set review should be. Hopefully, for most of you, that you appreciate what we have to say and you enjoy the fact that we are putting the time and the energy into to being thoughtful about our decisions and our ratings on cards. But while we have a moment here, chat, what are your thoughts on Druid? Faroon says, by the way, hi Faroon, says, loving the detail ass, keep it going. We plan on Faroon. We're hunkered down. We've got lots of fluids. We've got snacks. We're going to be taking breaks along the way. We're planning on sticking around for a minute.
For a minute. I'm ready, as.
Alrighty.
Sorry about that. I basically just poured a bottle of water on my head and grabbed the comb out of my hygiene bag and was like as fast as I could because it was still in my suitcase.
and you look slick, like a candidate about ready to make a speech.
I am, like, depending on what the next card is. Actually, it doesn't matter. I'll make a diatribe, soliloquy, or monologue out of it, depending on how Shakespearean I'm feeling.
Well, I think, guys, we wanted to ease into the ranting and raving a little bit.
Oh God, do I need to take the shirt off?
You might need to undo a couple of buttons or get your fan ready because I think we're going to be on this next class for just a minute because next up is Priest. Now, he's reading already, guys. Now, Priest is one of the classes right up there with Druid that has been kind of, again, to use the word ubiquitous in everyone's hatred scale for quite a while because of the oppressiveness of their resurrect mechanics, their spellstone specifically, and their ability to OTK you with the naked board, often, or at least frequently using your own effing minion to do it when you think you finally stabilized, and nothing feels worse when they've top decked, that Shadow Madness to steal your taunt that saved your life, then they flip it over and do the things that they do. Anyway, the point is that a lot of people are angry with Priest. So it's interesting to take a look at the direction things are going, and I'm sure that Mr. Exile's Rhythm is going to have a lot of comments about the state of Priest now and in the future moving forward. So that's
before we move into rating the cards, do you mind if we talk a little bit about the cards that are rotating out?
That's an excellent idea. Go for it, my friend.
Okay, so it's important to note that one of the most frustrating cards to me, Psychic Scream, is rotating out. The reason Psychic Scream was so frustrating is because it goes into the control style deck, but it makes your opponent, it makes the game take longer by giving your opponent more cards as well. So it literally, and then in the other strategies, it's just it's a board clear with no downside. Literally. Anyway, I don't need to complain about Psychic Scream too much, but Psychic Scream is going. The Spellstones are going. I had a whole list prepared on another notebook that was going, and Azrael is going to tell me about the other important card that's leaving.
Lyra. Oh man, Lyra, yes. Lyra's leaving. Radiant Elemental is leaving. Oh God, we're missing another important one. Well, it'll come to us as you're talking. Go ahead.
Oh, Dragon Soul, that's it.
Yeah, no, yes, that's it. Yes, you nailed it.
But yeah, so it's important to realize that before we go into rating these cards, the Resurrect mechanic from Priest is no longer...
Shadow Visions.
Shadow Vision, that's it. Shadow Visions.
Yes.
Yeah, you like that rage face? Just hear the name. Let's go. So it's the power level is dropping considerably, and most of the things that we hate are being not completely stripped, but we'll say kicked in the knee.
Yeah, and we're going to see what you mean by that in a card that we're going to review at some point along the way here. But I do want to touch back on something you said. I think it is actually important to note that your hatred of Psychic Scream is completely justified. I think a lot of people realize that Psychic Scream is a powerful card, but to understand why Psychic Scream is a powerful card, other than just you can intuitively tell it's a powerful card because it feels bad, but why it feels bad, giving understanding to why it feels bad, which is that it takes a bunch of that you don't want in your deck and puts that in your deck, which means that you're drawing exactly. instead of the things that you want to be drawing, right? So because just like the priest is trying to get to their win condition, be it a combo or be it, an OTK mechanic, whatever. You're also trying to get to the things that you need to win the game, or at least not to lose the game, or at least to prevent them from doing the broken that they're trying to do because they're priest. And you can't, because they just put 7 cards in your deck. And it's like you're constantly balancing between trying to not lose the game, trying to win the game, and trying to prevent them from doing the things that are going to make your life miserable. And it's very hard to do with a card that literally makes your deck worse. Not only does it take your power off the board and a piece of your soul with it every time it's played, but it literally makes your deck often worse against a very powerful deck to begin with. So it is not a one-fold or a two-fold power card. It's a 3-fold power card. It does 3 things that you don't want to have happen when you're playing the game. 1, it clears your board. 2, it prevents you from doing what you want to do. And 3, it makes your deck, which you then need to draw into to try and not lose the game, worse. Anyway, that's my piece on it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It was too much of an auto-win card in so many situations. And it's going to Wild, thank God.
Yeah. Sorry, Wild.
I'm not. It's not going to get played there.
I was trying not to smile when I said it. All right, let's go. So, let's move on. So the first card we're going to look at today is a 2-mana 2/2 common minion called Evil Conscriptor with the death rattle that reads, add a lackey to your hand. I like this card a lot. I think lackeys are going to be very powerful, very potent, very good value cards. I think it's an okay stat line. 2-mana 2/2 isn't terrible, isn't great. You want a 2-mana 2/3 or 2-mana 3/2, that's ideal. But I think getting that lackey, that upside from that lackey is actually really cool. I think that this is going to play well in the kind of decks that I always found to be fun with Priest, which were those, I loved Death Rattle Priest, Quest Priest, before it became oppressive. God. I thought it was a lot of fun. I loved trying to make it work because it was bad, right? I love the idea of getting rewarded for playing a bunch of mediocre Death Rattle minions to get a win condition of, which is basically exhaust them, bore them to death. And often it failed, but it was a fun deck to play. It was a fun deck to play. And you were penalized if it didn't work out, right? You didn't have Psychic Scream or something else to save you. So I think it enables kind of a return to what I thought made Priest kind of fun to play. But it isn't a super broken card. And it synergizes well with some of the other cards and mechanics that we're going to see in this set. So I think overall, it's just a good card with a little bit of upside because the lackeys can be really powerful. So overall, I'm okay with this card, and I kind of like its design. What are your thoughts?
At first I was pretty low on the card, right? I mean, because at first when you look at it, you take all the text off, like you said, 2-mana 2/2. I'm never playing a 2-mana 2/2 if I can avoid it. I'm never going to play a 2-mana 2/2, but it doesn't not have a place. I'll put it that way. It doesn't not have a place. But the reason I was so low on it was because the name, Evil Conscriptor, it's spelled with an ER instead of OR, which is kind of hurting my brain. And I don't care if ER is the proper way to spell it. Every time I look at it, it's screaming it should be OR, OR, OR. Now we can actually talk about what it says on the card, or unless you want to talk about how it's like a beetle reverend thing. I don't know.
Yeah, that's more of a lore reference that I'm not going to get into right now, but that particular type of creature is might look funny, but they're actually pretty powerful. But that's another story.
Fair enough. And I'm going to remind real quick a couple of the lackey effects. So we know what we're talking about with its death rattle, because as Azrael had said, it says death rattle, add a lackey to your hand. The lackeys are one mana 1/1s. Yeah, 1-mana 1/1s. My brain was telling me it was 2, but I'm just probably staring at all these 2s right here. But yeah, they're 1-mana 1/1s with effects that generally cost 2 mana. So it's one of them's draw a card, one of them is deal 2 damage, one of them is, well, those are the 2 that I remember off the top of my head because my brain's working great today.
Give +1/+1 in Rush, I think, is one of them.
Yep.
Another one is, now I can't remember. Evolve. Thank you, Nixie. The point that I was getting at with those is that
they reward having minions on the board,
Mhm.
which is something Priest has never done before. I was talking on one of the previous episodes about how Miracle Priest is going to be good,
Mhm.
and how this might actually even fit into that strategy.
Interesting.
Yeah. Surrender Priests are going to be a real thing.
Yeah.
And Evil
Explain to
Scripture
people what Surrender Priest is for those that the uninitiated in the terminology.
So Surrender Priest, it refers to a card, Surrender to Madness, which is 3 mana cards, a 3 mana card that reads, destroy 2 of your mana crystals. All the minions in your deck have +2/+2.
3 of your crystals.
Oh, sorry, destroy 3 of your mana crystals. The rest of your cards in your deck, not in your hand, but in your deck, have +2/+2. So this is a 2 mana 4/4 is great, and because it costs so little is why it works. Right now, we are at a loss for low-cost minions and priests that are impactful enough to be played on curve without surrender.
Right.
But this fits into that strategy, and I'm looking at priest as one of those classes that's going to pick up an aggressive or a miracle or a tempo type of deck, and we'll see that moving forward, I'm sure.
Yep, we're going to see some other cards that this is probably going to have some synergy with for sure, and it's going to be minion based.
Yeah, and I don't really have a whole lot more to say about the card. I think
it's a pretty straightforward card. I think it's a slightly understated minion with an upside that in the right deck can be potent. I think is how I would summarize it. Overall, I would give this card a 5. It's just a good card, decent card. Not going to see a lot of play in. I don't want to call it a good card. It's a decent card. It's going to see play in minion based decks, but it's not going to be in every priest deck. So I think it's just an okay card. Okay overall with some upside.
I think it's going to see more play than Lucent Bark.
Yeah.
But I think it's about on the same power level. So also a 5.
Nice.
If we just went with how much it was going to be played, it's probably going to be a 6 or 7, because this is going to find a place in a lot of decks that people are going to be initially experimenting with.
Yes.
Because of what Priest has done historically.
And I think it's also important to note too that that it's going to see a lot of play just because of the fact that this is a number that's attached to it. And it's a minion, because Priest, as you mentioned, struggles, has struggled. How often people have been playing the game for a little while has a decent 2-drop been absent from Priest. The last time we've had a couple recently, but up until what was the most famous 2-drop that we had in Priest for a long time? The one that fit in Dragon Priest, the 2 mana,
the Witchwood.
Before that, no, the one that would fit, the one that was in Dragon Priest, it escapes me off the top of my head, but it was a 2 mana. There's a 2 mana card that gave you taunt or something like that. That was the last, prior to Witchwood, when they started printing some decent 2-drops. That was really the last one that was like an okay 2-drop for them. The name of it escapes me right now, but so just because it's a viable 2 mana minion for Priest, it's going to see a lot more play initially. Then and as the year rolls out, it will probably see less play, except in a specific type of deck. Is my thought.
I am 100% on board with you.
Okay, well, let's move on. You can take the next one here.
Sounds good. I love this card, actually. At least I love the art of it.
Yes.
So Shadowy Figure is a 2 mana priest minion. Shadowy Figure is a 2 mana 2/2 priest minion that reads Battlecry. Transform into a 2/2 copy of a friendly Death Rattle minion. So if you didn't like playing good cards in your deck, then throw this in there. No, but for real, it's gonna be good in decks that play bad cards. That's honest. That's an honest assessment. That's not me being snide about it at all. Because there are decks, read Clone Priest, that play nothing but a lot of bad cards that you see unusable elsewhere, because Priest has tools to mitigate that. They have ways to extend the game better than other classes do. So that's why normally, if this was a Druid card or a Mage card or literally any class that wasn't Priest, I would just be crushing this card right now.
Right.
But because it's a Priest card, I think that it's halfway decent.
Yeah. The thing is about this card is that in a vacuum, it's like you said, it's kind of garbage. But because Priest, and we're going to see some of these cards coming up, because Priest is going to be able to capitalize on its battle cry, it's going to get a lot of play. And there are going to be times where you absolutely hate this card and think it's the most broken card you've ever seen. There's going to be all kinds of wacky combos, like where you're going to see, people are going to make bomb priest be a thing because they're going to play the Sephorim bomber and they're going to use this to make a bunch of copies of it, and then they're going to use the some other duplicate mechanic to make even more copies of it, because as I read this card, they become two versions of that card. So it's like the Prince Malchazar.
Yeah, Prince Malchazar. Yeah,
it becomes a copy of that. So when they resurrect it, it becomes a full-fledged version of that, right? So when they play their resurrect spell that we're going to talk about in a little bit, they're going to have a full-fledged version of whatever they're duplicating be in the res pool, not this card. So there are going to be times where this card is going to be punishing and going to be viable and going to be very good, but it's going to be in the right kind of deck. The reason why X, and clarify or correct me if I'm wrong, but I just kind of want to emphasize what you said. But the reason why X says it's going to be played in a deck that runs a lot of bad cards is because the things that you're going to have to run this with to make it work are bad by themselves, and they only work because this card exists and because Priest has the tools to make you be able to live long enough or control the game long enough to do the thing that you're trying to do. Like for example, was it the Mashag Bouncer or whatever, the 2-mana, the 2/14 with bubble? It's a bad card that's played in only one deck because Priest has the tools to make that card valuable in a deck. But overall, looking at it from a larger, more objective standpoint, I love the design of the card. I think it's cool. I think it's fun. I like that they're doing stuff like this. But I mean, it's only going to be good. And like for example, I would play this card far more often than I would play this card in a deck for the same stat line. But when this card does get play, it's usually going to be something that makes you hate your life. And for that alone, I'm going to rate it probably a little higher than X, just because it opens, anytime a card opens up a possibility for an oppressive or abused combo, I'm going to rate it a little higher because people are going to do it, and then it's going to get refined, and it's going to become the new Mechathune or the new OTK, whatever, and everybody's going to hate their lives, and they're going to bemoan why Priest keeps getting good cards. So I'm going to rate it probably a little higher because of that potential that is created by this card.
So I think that has a place in Wild, but I'm not here to review Wild. The only question I have to ask before I give you an out of 10, and this one is an honest question because I can't remember.
Sure.
There's a 5-mana card that says give target minion death rattle.
Corpse Raiser or whatever.
Yeah, Corpse Raiser, exactly. Is that rotating or is that staying in standard?
Oh crap! I think that is staying. I want to say that's a Witchwood card, but don't quote me on that. I'd have to look it up.
It's so bad I've never played it.
Yeah, I think it's a Witchwood card. I could be wrong.
But yeah, so if that card's staying in standard, this becomes a lot scarier, right? Because then you can Corpse Taker any minion you want, and then you can. I'm actually just gonna look it up right now, so I stop with my crazy insane combos that'll never make it in Wild. Or not Corpse Taker, Corpse Raiser.
Corpse Raiser,
Why did I say that? Yeah.
Oh, it's rotating. It's from Frozen Throne. Okay.
Oh, it's Frozen Throne. Okay, so never mind then.
Never mind.
Because like with Corpse Raiser, this would be a great card because you could just give anything Death Rattle and then copy it, right?
That's true.
So if there's any card that if there's any card that you're able to abuse it with next to that, then yeah, it's going to be great. For me, it's honestly a 6 out of 10 because by itself it's good. Like it's good for Priest. So
yeah. I agree. I'm actually surprised because I was going to rate it a 7 out of 10. So I thought you were going to be a little lower on it than that. But the reason why I'm going to rate it a 7 out of 10, probably if you're not familiar with the set, won't become clear until later. So keep the shadow figure in your mind. Well, not the image of it because that actually be kind of terrifying. But keep the card in your mind because I'm going to be referencing some death rattles that are going to be good to synergize potentially in those kind of broken combos later. So we'll come back to this. So keep it in your mind. But both surprisingly higher than I thought we both would have been. I thought you would have been a little lower on this one. So.
And like I said, if it was a Druid card, I'd have crushed it. 2 out of 10 in any class. It's not Priest.
There you go. There you go. But because
context.
Next card.
Yep, the Hench Clan Shadequill. It's a 4-mana, 4/7 Priest minion that reads Death Rattle, restore 5 minion, 5 health to the enemy hero. This reminds us of Corrupted Healbot, which was an 8-mana 8/8, restore 8 mana to the enemy hero. Restore 8 mana to the enemy hero as a death rattle.
Mm-hmm.
The stat line of this is crazy.
It's so good. So good.
4-7. I'm playing this in every deck. If it's a death rattle, you lose the game, basically. Like, this stat line is nuts.
Yeah, I would play this. I think Trump made the analogy once on a particular card. But I would play this card if it read 4 mana, burn the next 5 cards off the top of your deck. Like,
oh, absolutely.
Yeah, this stat line is absolutely bonkers. If you don't understand how good 4 mana 4/7 is, I mean, that's insane. It's so good. Even with the Restore 5 hair, because you don't care. Because if you hit them twice with it, and you're going to hit it 2 or 3 times with it, if you hit them twice with this, you're already ahead of that heal. And chances are you're going to get 3 or 4 heals or 3 or 4 attacks off this before it dies. And that's assuming you're not healing it.
Well, that's in an aggro deck. Mm-hmm. Think about this in a control deck. I'm not going to hit the enemy in the face before turn 4.
Yep.
So this is going to trade into 3 minions with no downside.
Or more.
Yeah.
Because you can heal.
This card is so good.
It's bonkers good. Bonkers good. They were showing this off in the card dump stream, and it was in a deck that was like a Silence Priest. You don't even need silence for this. I would run this without silence all day long. This is like if you need a minion on curve, this is better than Twilight Drake in my opinion, because it doesn't have any requirements. So. And this works with a lot of things that Priest already has. Like Topsy-Turvy isn't rotating, guys. So, you can play this and you can flip it over and you can trade up for 7 or you can hit him in the face for 7. There's all kinds of things that you can do with this stat line. I think it's an outstanding card. It's very strong.
The thing that scares me most about this card is turn 4 Hench Clan Shadequill into turn 5 trade Mass Hysteria.
Yeah. Yeah,
that scares me.
Yeah, it's gonna trade their entire board, and you're gonna have a 4/2 left that you can then heal and hit them in the face with.
Not only did you just gain the board, you also gained initiative, which is a huge difference. That's what makes Doomsayer so good in the right decks, is because when it goes off against Hunter, you just win because now you won the board and you won the initiative. So they have to play into your strong board.
Yes,
when you have to play into a Priest strong board, oh my God, you about to lose.
And for those that might not understand the concept of initiative, what he means is when you play something like Doomsayer, it goes off at the start of your turn. So the board is clear on your turn, meaning that they have to respond to whatever you then play, which gives you initiative, which is another term for that is momentum or tempo. It is now in your favor, and they have to respond to what you're doing instead of the other way around. It is a huge swing play.
Yeah, I think this card is just nuts.
Yeah, I do too. I think this is bonkers, and it's a common, which is just like that used to mean something like for Arena, but now it's just going to see a lot of play. It's going to see play in Arena like all day long. It's going to see play in a lot of Priest decks. There's very few decks that this doesn't work in.
This is immediately a top tier. This is immediately a top tier bucket.
Oh, it has to be. It has to be. Yeah.
How crazy is it that I would be sitting there considering Primordial Drake or Hench Clan Shadequill? I know we're not here to do Arena, but in my mind, I put those two next to each other and I would have a hard time. Yeah. And that's a Primordial Drake. Yeah. But we'll leave that for our Arena special on Sunday.
That's right. Me as an Arena pleb, even I can identify this as a good card. I can't wait to see what our experts are going to say about it. Yeah. Stay tuned for that one, guys. What do you give this card, unless you have anything else you want to add about it?
So if you're not playing against Heal Druid, this card is an 8.5 out of 10. I want to go to a 9 because that's how powerful this card is. It's just so good. So good. But yeah, I can't go 9 because Staladris was 9. So let me take the easy way out and call it 8.5.
I went 9.
Yeah.
I went 9 just because of how ubiquitous it's going to be. Because it's going to be in so many decks, at least for this set. At least for the next 3 months, this card will be. It will balance out. I think in the long run, I think this card will see play for the remainder of the 2 years it's in rotation. It's just that good, unless they're deciding to print even more ridiculously bonkers cards. But this card is good enough to see play throughout the remainder of its 2-year lifespan. But I think especially in this set, in this 3.5, 4 months that we're going to have this set be the only set we have. I think that this card is easily a 9 because it's going to be in almost every Priest. So I'm giving it a 9 just for that reason alone.
You know what I just realized, Azrael?
Oh boy.
Auchenai Phantasm is a 2-mana card, 2-mana 3/2 aggressive card that reads your effects that
you sick
heal
monster.
this turn deal damage instead. So now let me dome you with my 6/9
7/4
surrendered. Oh, it's gonna be a 6/9.
Topsy turvy.
So 9/6.
Mm-hmm.
I was putting in Surrender Priest for my example, but
Sure.
So and then Auchenai, kill it off with your Mass Hysteria. So you're clearing the entire board, and you just dealt 15 damage to the enemy. I could think of 100 million scenarios for this card. Let's move on before I just theorycraft every priest deck possible.
Yeah, that's going to be a bonkers combo, and people are going to make it work. It's just going to happen. It's gross.
Auchenai Phantasm is going to take off with the set.
Oh yeah, and Auchenai Phantasm, for those of you that don't know, is a 2-mana 3/2. So it's just an aggressively statted. It's a good card by itself, and its effect reads your heal effects this turn deal damage instead. It's an Auchenai Soul Priest, but on turn 2. With an aggressive stat line, but it's only for 1 turn. But cards like this are going to make cards like that so playable. Yeah, I'm excited for this card. It's pretty cool. Next, we have another minion. We have the 5-mana 2/6 Convincing Infiltrator with the text Taunt, Death Rattle, destroy a random enemy minion. I have some thoughts on this card.
Let me hear them.
We saw how disgusting the Obsidian Statue was in Priest, and that was a 9-mana card. And it healed. Yeah, it healed you. Whatever, that was nice. But what made it bonkers was the fact that it would trade into their entire board, and whatever it didn't trade into would die to its Death Rattle effect, and then they would resurrect it and just make your life miserable. Well, now you've got this card, which plays a lot sooner, which is one of the biggest problems that Priest has, is not having a lot of stuff to play in the middle of the game other than board clears. So you can play this on turn 5, and against that mid-range hunter or whatever aggressive deck you're playing against, they trade their little dudes in, and then their Savannah Highmane just dies to its effect, which that's just the first thing that comes off the top of my head. Now you're using the card that we talked about before, 2 cards ago, the Shadow Figure, and you're getting a cheap duplicate, which you can then kill your own way or trade in, or just leave on the board, or put more of these into your res pool. You see where the combos start building. Its stat line is whatever. You're playing this for the fact that it's got a big butt on it, and it has the effect to kill one of their dudes when it's played. I think it's a versatile card. I think its stat line is okay for what it does, and I think it enables. It fills a spot that we're losing the Tortolan Shellraiser in it, and it fills It fills the 5-mana spot with something other than a board clear spell like Holy Nova or Mass Hysteria. And it synergizes with some of the other effects like the Resurrects and the Death Rattles and the Copies effects that we're seeing. So I think it's just overall a really good card design that enables, or that gives priests other options than what they've typically run in this spot. So I like the card a lot.
I think the card's okay. The first thing that really struck me when I saw the card, outside of the weird tentacle things that are going on to the girl wearing this hood, was the fact that Infiltrator was spelled with an OR, however, Conscriptor was spelled with an ER. And this made me no consistency, Blizzard. No, I think the card's well designed as a decent arena card. I keep using that word, arena, but this is one of those cards that's going to trap people. It's going to trap people.
That's fair.
Into thinking that it's good, but it's just not good enough. It's like
there are better 5-mana cards, is what you're saying.
No, I'm saying it's got 2 attack, and if you play it on turn 5, it does nothing except for kill a random 1/1. If you play it on turn 10, it kills. Well, you're not going to play on turn 10 because you're dead by then if you're playing this card in your deck. I'd rather play Witchwood Grizzly, honestly, because the 2 attack to 3 attack is a huge difference. 2 attack trades into 1-drops and trades into 2-drops. There's not many 3-drops it trades into, and the 3-drops that it does trade into are utility 3-drops.
Right.
So they're going to have already gotten served their purpose, gotten their value.
Fair.
So it doesn't it doesn't trade into the minions as well as it might look. Where 3 attack now trades into a lot of 3 drops and even some 4 drops, not very many, but some.
Mm-hmm.
But because it trades so far down, that effect, which is also on Spider Bomb, which is a much better card, 2 less mana, 4 less health, and a Hunter.
Mm-hmm.
I can't be very high on this card, as
That's
I
fair.
can't. I think this is the first one we're going to differ on,
Probably
heavily differ.
Probably. So you, in essence, you think that the death rattle effect in a mid-range or a control style priest is just kind of not worth it for that stat line. There are other ways to remove minions other than that.
There's other ways to do it better. Exactly.
That's fair.
So the way that this becomes good in my mind, now you're right. There is a lot of combo potential, Shadowy Figure, and we're not going to talk about it till it comes up.
Sure.
But even though it's abusable, I don't think that abusing this card is the right card to abuse.
That's
I would rather abuse a
100%
different card.
fair. I'm sorry, you'd rather abuse what I talked over you?
I said abuse a different card.
Oh, that's fair. 100% fair. So, what do you give this card? Let me go first.
Yep.
I give this card a 6.5 out of 10.
Easy 4.
Yeah, see, that's pretty big. This is one of the biggest differences that we've had in cards so far. I give it a 6.5 out of 10 for the reasons I said before. I'm probably overvaluing it because I'm falling in love with the potential of this card. But that's why we have you here, X, to kind of rein it in a little bit. So
you might be very right, because the power level is dropping a lot, like we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
So I might be seeing it from the wrong, not from the wrong perspective, but from a perspective other than what we're going to be seeing. And
sure.
Context means everything when it comes to priest cards.
100%. And my thought is that it's one of those things that has the potential to be abused. And with the Resurrect not going away, this card's going to be sticking around. We'll see though. I could be wrong, because there are a lot of good cards in this set, guys. Pop quiz for you, X, and it's not a trick question, so don't overthink it. How many cards in this set, 135 cards, how many cards in this set have 0 text on them?
14.
1.
Told you.
1 in the entire set.
Can we spoiler this card? Because I want to know what it is.
Yeah, I will spoiler it. Let me bring it up here real quick. I don't want to flip through all the cards to get to it, but
sorry.
It's okay. I can find it real quick. Give me there.
Yeah.
I found it. It's right here. Spoink. It's this card right here.
Oh, the Arcane Servant. Okay.
The Arcane
I was like,
Servant.
why can't I think of what it is?
This is the only card in the entire set that has no text on it. And by the way, has freaking amazing card art. Love the card art on this. Very cool card art, but has no text. Every other card in the entire set has some text on it, even if it's just stealth. Everything has at least something on it. Mm-hmm. And that to me, and I love pointing that out, because while people think we're losing a lot of power in this set, when you have 135 cards coming in that have something more than just stats, that says that you're getting power. You're getting something. You're getting a little more than what you would get in the vanilla set. So they are taking a lot of power out, but the power level isn't going from, say, 10 to 3. It's going from like 10 to 5. It's scaling back, so it's going to feel weaker, but there are a lot of very cool cards in this set, and I think we're going to see that more as we move forward.
You raise a very interesting point about the power level and the text on the cards, and it leads me to think about how we're not losing power level, like you said, rather gaining skill checks. We're making it more complicated. We're making the game more complex, thusly making room for counterplay. Because if your minions do more than just minion stuff, that is hit the enemy in the dome piece, like I like to do so much,
mm-hmm.
It makes for more decision points.
Yes.
It's like you're not going to feel like you're brain dead when you're playing your favorite aggressive deck, and that's going to make me happy.
You hit the nail on the head with one of the things I love about this new set. Yeah, they're adding. I wanted to point out they're still adding a lot of powerful cards. The powerful cards are not going away entirely, right? But what they are doing is they are making it not easy to do powerful things. Like, you have to think about what you're doing. You and I talked about this with Rude in a previous episode. We talked about how a lot of times your win condition was stall until you get the right 4 or 5 cards and then just win the game. And the other person can do nothing once you get the right 4 or 5 cards. It's just over. That's not skill, right? At least not the kind of skill that should be rewarded in a competitive environment, right? Like,
at least not the magnitude that it is.
Correct. Not in 6 or 8 different decks that are fairly cheap and easy to build, right? And then easy to learn. Like, yeah, they're tricky to like learn, but once you have them down, it's basically the same pattern every game, right? Unless you just draw terribly, which is how many times were you playing against like a Mechathune class or like Shrivala Paladin, you're just like, well, unless they draw poorly, I'm going to lose the game because I have no answers to what they're doing. And that
basically every single time.
Yeah, and that never feels good because it's like they're playing on autopilot and you're sitting there racking your brain for 25 minutes, wasting your time trying to find a way to beat a deck that you just can't, because all you have to do is get those 5 cards. They're making it so power exists. They're making it so you can do cool things, like I kind of hinted at with the Gonk deck, if it works. But you have to do things and think it through and make the right decisions to make it happen, not just, gain armor, gain armor, gain armor, gain armor, or heal, clear, heal, clear, and then just draw what you need. And also they're getting rid of a lot of the draw, right? The draw is what we saw. The draw is what made a lot of these decks worth it, because not only are they trying to win by getting all these combinations, but they're able to, this is the most card draw we saw in the last year that any set's ever had, right? When druids are drawing their deck faster than warlocks, something is wrong.
Druids drawing their decks faster than Eonlocks, the half-costed hero power that you're touching every turn. And I would still get Mechathune before I had 10 mana.
Exactly. That's where, so it even took out the ability to have to stall, right? Because when you're playing an OTK deck or you're playing a combo deck, the downside should be that you have to find ways to survive until you can draw your entire deck to do the thing. But then you just circumvent that by drawing your entire deck before the other player even gets to the mid game, right?
And then the thing is done.
And then it's done. And it takes the skill out of it. The skill is just drawing your cards quickly, which is easy to do when you're druid and you've got literally all of the draw mechanics in the game plus all of the neutral ones. Anyway, the point is we got off on a tangent there, guys. I'm sorry, but I think it's important to put that information out there for perspective, so that when we're evaluating these cards and we're saying that a lot of these cards are on the same power level or potential power level, or that the power level isn't necessarily going down, it's all relative, because it's a different kind of power, right? It's the difference between, the power of a handgun versus the power of a knife. Well, most people would argue that a handgun is more powerful than a knife, but they haven't ever, met somebody that's an expert with a knife, right? And so the point is that don't think that the game is going to be boring, because there's 134 cards coming in with text on them, right? It's just going to be different, and like X astutely pointed out, it's going to involve a lot more decision making and a lot more thought and a lot less of just holding on until you draw the right X number of cards. So sorry we got off on a bit of a tangent there, but I think that was important for us to cover. X, is there anything else you want to say on that point before we rein it back in?
Yeah, don't be sorry. You're feeding right into the hatred that is my soul right now.
Fair enough. Anything else on the convincing infiltrator, or are we ready to move?
I'm ready to move on.
Let's do it. Boom. This is a card we've talked about before.
It is?
Yeah, we talked about this on a previous episode. It was one of the first cards that was revealed.
With Lizul's Scheme.
What's that?
It was revealed alongside Lizul's Scheme, which synergized with it pretty well, yeah?
Correct. This card is a 0 mana priest spell, rare priest spell, Forbidden Words. Spend all your mana, destroy a minion with that much attack or less. Go ahead and tackle this one first, buddy.
Yeah, so I've seen a lot of people that are very high on this card as a way for Priest to deal with those pesky 4-attack minions. That's not what this card is for. This card is for Miracle. This card is for Tempo. This card is for Aggro. This card is for Surrender. This card is insane.
Very insane card.
But in the right deck. If you're putting this in
took the words out of my mouth. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
If you're putting this in your control deck, you're doing it wrong. If you're putting this in your deck that has Gadget and Auctioneer, then you're doing it right. With Sandredge, you're doing it right. This card is going to be able to draw you a card, put a 1/1 taunt on the board, and remove an enemy minion for 0 mana. Get out of my game. This card is insane. This card is really strong.
Yeah.
Like in the right deck.
Yep.
Standalone, it's okay, right? But since I have this mad vision for what Priest is going to become, God, I can't wait to play this card.
Yeah, I think your overall assessment was spot on. I think the crispest way that I can describe this card is it's a situationally awesome card.
Yeah.
And any card that I can use that description for, I love, because it's a card that requires thought. You can't just slam it in there and go, this is a must include card, right? I think every card game requires must include cards, even if they're not designed that way. Just by the nature of the fact that it's a limited set, there's going to be cards that are like auto included. If you remember in vanilla, you could start out base vanilla Hearthstone. You would start out building every deck with included the same. I think it was 14 cards, and I can't remember what they were off the top of my head, but it was like 2 copies of Acidic Swamp Ooze and 2 copies of Yeti and a few other cards. And there was these 12 or 14 cards that were basically in every single deck. They weren't particularly good, but they were just so average and mediocre that they kind of filled your deck out, and you could build around that, right? So my point is, though, is beyond having base cards that are just common in a lot of archetypes, I think it's bad card design to make any card that's an automatic include in every single deck ever, because it's just lazy, because it doesn't encourage thoughtful deck building. You can just go, it's a powerful card, it has to go in. It's just good, has to go in. It's broken, got to play it. And that's not thoughtful. That doesn't involve any intuitiveness or vision. You just go, yeah, it's the most broken card I can play. It's got to go in. And I don't like a lot of cards like that. I love this card because it's situationally awesome. In the right deck, in the right scenario, it's going to be the most frustrating table flipping card that you have played against you. But in a lot of situations, it's going to be okay. And in a large number of decks entirely, it's not going to see play or shouldn't see play at all. And I think that's great card design. As far as the effect, I think Kibler called it Power Word 4. Because for 4 mana you kill those pesky four attack minions, and I think that's a great description of this card. But again, that's going to be the exception, not the rule of how this card is played. And I think that is cool. So I love the card design, love the potential of this card, and love the fact that it's as powerful as it is. It doesn't belong in every single deck. Probably belongs in about 65% of them, but not all of them.
One of the things I like most about this card, we were talking really long earlier about the skill checks. We talked about Discover, the whole thing was just, we're talking about, skill checks.
Right.
This has that built-in skill check of you're never going to play it the first time you can play it.
Bingo. That is a great point to make. Why you want to extrapolate on that just a little bit so it's clear to people? Because I love that point. I think it deserves some attention.
Yeah, so there are a lot of cards. Let's say Dire Maul. You have that on turn 1, you're going to play it on turn 1. Or there are a lot of cards, Rexar. It's after turn 8, if you draw it, you're just going to play it. It's an auto play. First opportunity you get, you're going to play a card. Insert whatever card, whatever deck. There are a lot of them. You're just going to play it as soon as you draw it, or as soon as you can. As soon as there's a target, even with cards such as Baited Arrow. Like as soon as there's a target, you're going to play it. This one, you have to consider every time you play it, because if you play it the first time you can, you're going to be killing a 2/2 for 2 for 2 mana,
right?
And that's not going to be good. And also, if you play it the first time you can, you have to make so many sacrifices on what you're doing for the rest of your turn. And because my vision of this card, we were talking about vision, goes into an Aggro Tempo Miracle style deck. It just adds a skill check to an aggro deck, and aggro decks need more skill checks in this game because there's no interacting on your opponent's turn. I like it a lot.
I agree, and I think that's a great way to discuss it. And I think one of the things that we should just discuss really quickly is emphasize the fact that it spends your remaining mana. So you can't play this first and then follow it up with something else, or follow up another play. So again, this goes into the skill check and into the decision making of, you have to know when to play this and at the right time, and you sacrifice to play this. If you have to play it on turn 7, right? But you want to do something else, you're choosing between doing this thing or doing the other thing that you want. And there's a price to be paid, and it's a risk reward scenario. And if you make the right decision and it gets rewarded, that's the kind of thing that you want to have happen. It's a lot easier to snap play a power word death when you know it's 3 mana and you can still spend your other 3 or 4 mana on whatever you want to do. It's a lot harder to do it when that's possibly your entire turn. So
I just thought of how disgusting this would be with Shadow Visions. Anyway, that was just a side note.
Thank God. Sorry, Wild.
Yo,
what do you give this card, my friend?
So as much as I talk so good about it, like in general, on average, it's not going to be great. 6 out of 10. I love the card. I'm going to play the crap out of it. But on average, let's be real with ourselves, 6 out of 10.
Same number I gave it for the exact same reason. One of the things I've talked about a lot is how much a card is going to be played. And when I say played, I mean played in this set. Not the next set, because we can't evaluate cards with sets that we don't have yet. But in this set, one of the things that I've mentioned time and time again that is part of my metric is how much play it will get. And again, one of the things I love about this card is the fact that it won't be in every deck. And I said earlier that it's going to be in probably 65% of decks, and that's why one of the reasons why I came up with 6 as well. But I 100% agree, and I'm not surprised at all we are on the same page with this card, because this is a card that behind the scenes you, me, and Eric have talked about a couple times, and we've talked about in a previous episode as well. And I think we had a lot of the same feelings on this card, and that feels good, because that means that this is one of those cards that feels like they got right. Like it just feels like they got it right, and that's exciting, because there's so many times you see a card like original OG Shutterwalk, you're just like, why in God's name are they making this card a thing? But this card, you see, you just go, nice job.
Let's take the small victories. Hey, Ixar, this is the second compliment you've gotten in 2 hours. Like, if we take everybody on the... I don't think this has ever happened to him before in regards to Hearthstone.
Oh, man, brutal. All right, why don't you grab this next one, X?
Okay, I'm gonna grab my self-control and stop insulting this man. So Lazul Scheme, we kind of alluded to earlier. Lazul Scheme is the next card. It's a 0-mana priest spell that says reduce the attack of an enemy minion by 1 until your next turn, and then upgrades each turn. I was about to read that last line before, and here we are.
This is also is this the first scheme that we've talked about? This is the first scheme we've talked about. Scheme. We should talk about the scheme mechanic as well.
Oh, go for it.
The scheme mechanic is the upgrades each turn effect that X read off the card. Any card that has the scheme on it has that text, and scheme is one of the mechanics. It's not listed as a card text mechanic. It's just the name of the actual effect. So you see Lazul Scheme. I think there's another one. All of the 5 bosses have a scheme named after them. Lazul's scheme is upgrades each turn, as in it reduces for 0 mana, it reduces the enemy minion's attack by 1 additional each turn. So if you play it on the first turn you have it reduces it by 1. If you play it on the 5th turn you have it reduces it by 5. If you play it on the 30th turn you have it reduces their attack by 30. And all of the schemes upgrade at the end of each one of your turns.
Yep, and it's a fantastic idea, but if we put it into practice, we'll see, because I'm going to probably quiz Azrael in the next scheme, because I want to talk well about at least one first.
Okay.
So,
what do you think about this one, though?
Yeah, I was about to. I'm so excited for this one. Lazul Scheme is so sweet.
Hit it.
It's so sweet because it fits right into what was I just talking about? This aggro, this miracle, this tempo priest that we wanted for so long. Everyone wants to make Murloc Priest work. Murloc Priest ain't never going to work, but you know what will work? Miracle Priest. We have Sandridge. We have, I said, Gadget Sand Auctioneer. We have Auchenai Phantasm. We have Regenerate, Flash Heal, Lazul Scheme. We have the the card we just went over.
Topsy Turvy is one of them.
Yeah. No. Oh yeah. We also have Topsy Turvy. The card we just Forbidden Words. Yep. Forbidden Words. All these 0 cost spells.
A lot of them, and ways to draw when you play a spell. Thank God Lyra is gone. That's one of the reasons I mentioned at the beginning of this. Right.
So we're not looking at like infinite value Miracle. We're looking at old school Miracle, where you're just playing a million cards and praying for a miracle to happen, because all the cards in your deck are bad except for Tinker Sharpsword Oil. I mean, Mind Blast, whatever. Except for one card. and you just get to draw your whole deck. It's the same reason I think Evenlock was good, because overall, Evenlock just played a bunch of really bad cards, but because it was able to constantly see all of its cards, it was able to find a nice midway point between Handlock and, like, I would say between Handlock and Zoo, not Handlock and Control.
Right.
And yeah, so this card's got me really excited. It's got me really excited. I can only imagine the looks on my faces as I was talking about this card, because I know
I was literally going to comment on your face. I was going to say, for the people listening to the podcast right now, this man has smiled more in the last 30 seconds talking about this card than he has the entire stream. And he's been smiling a lot. The man's usually pretty high energy. So
yeah, this card I'm excited as. I'm gonna hope you are as well.
I am excited about this as well. I'm interested to see how Miracle and anything that allows like a class to burn through their deck quickly, to me lends itself to some continuation of the Mecha'thun experiments. I'm pretty sure that Mecha'thun will still be viable in Priest. It's one of the classes I think Mecha'thun will still be viable in, and this is another way that they're going to be able to use Miracle to enable that more. But outside of that extreme deck, I think it's a well-designed card overall. I think it's a well-designed card overall. It's not particularly broken. It has for the most part, specific uses, and it can allow you to trade into a big threat and not lose your board, for example. That's just a very lowbrow way that this card can just be viable, and it's going to work in that kind of like that tempo aggro deck you're talking about, where you have all these things you're spitting on the board, and then you're using your Miracle to draw through it. You have all these little minions that you're going to be able to trade into big threats and then be able to get to their face. And that's just the first few things that pop into my head when I think about this card. I like the card a lot. Zero people. It's funny because you hear such like dichotomized opinions on zero cost cards, like zero cost spells. People are like, zero cost spells always see play, and other people are like, cost spells are always bad design or always bad, but in reality, people said that about Pounce, and Pounce made it into a lot of decks.
Surprisingly,
Pounce was a 0-mana druid spell that gave you +3 attack, and it saw, or +2 attack, but it saw play, and it enabled Mecha'thun, and enabled Gonk and a few other things. So don't rule it out, regardless of what you think about zero cost spells in general. But the potential for this card in the right deck, and again, this is one of the reasons why I like it a lot, is in the right deck, it is really good, and in the wrong deck, it is garbage. And it involves a certain je ne sais quoi, a certain, you have to know when and how to play the card, and I like cards like that a lot. So again, if we're looking at just the plain card design on it, I love the card design on it. If you want to talk about how it can be used in decks, there is a lot of potential, most of which you've already outlined, so I don't want to go over again. So overall, I think it's a well-designed card.
The card has I have a lot of reservations about the card personally, like about how it's eventually going to be used, and its available potential for combo. The fact that it says an enemy minion is the part that scares me the most.
Yeah.
Because that means, to me, that indicates during testing, it was too strong to do on your own minions.
Oh, sure.
So, I mean, obviously that leads to its Mecha'thun, your Mecha'thun idea, which I hope I can make work, because I was, as you said, that I kind of just...
That was the thing that I'm sure the reason why they couldn't do it, because you do that, that's your win condition. You play Mecha'thun, then you play this for 0 on your own Mecha'thun, and then you just kill it with... Until
this is the 30th card in your deck.
Yeah, but how often does that happen? But then you just kill it with this card, right? So you make it have 0 attack, and then you kill it for 0, right? And that's your Mecha'thun win condition. So that obviously they had to make it on enemy minions.
Well, it fills me with a foreboding feeling. The word enemy in this card feels like a harbinger. And Priest, I think, is going to be one of the most powerful classes moving forward.
I agree.
Just because of how
it's already
the wide
powerful.
variety of and the wide variety of strategies.
Yes.
The last thing that I want to mention about this card before Az cuts me off, because I'm so excited about it. I need to be metered sometimes.
Fair enough.
This card is like all the other priest cards that we've talked about so far in that it is a bad card. But bad cards in priest are good when they're paired with other bad cards because every single priest card is trash until you can use it in tandem with another trash card. So with that being said, how do you feel, Az?
I like this card a lot, and I think it enables a lot of the things that Priest wants to do. Like it enables Cabal. It enables you to use it with Shadow Madness at the right power level, right? You can use it with Shadow Madness, and as long as it doesn't take it below 1 health, Shadow Madness it, flip it over, hit him in the face with Topsy-Turvy. So it enables Priest to do the things that it wants to do. And for that reason, I think it's a very good card in the right deck. And I think just like Lazul's, I have to temper it because in the wrong deck, it's just unplayable, or in the not right deck, it's completely unplayable. So it's another 6 card for me.
It's 4 out of 10. I'm super excited for it. I think it's the best game.
I think it's the second best scheme, but that was another thing to ask.
You're right.
I think it's the second best scheme, and I'm probably going to agree on the best scheme as well. But it's the second best scheme, and I think that's important to mention. The scheme mechanic is a cool idea. It's a flavorful idea for what the set theme is, but the schemes in general, as we're going to see, I mean,
like
this
I said,
is the best.
I was going to be excited about at least one of them before I crush the scheme soul.
Fair enough. All right, moving on. Next, we have another priest spell, a 4-mana Unsleeping Soul. It's a common spell, and it reads, silence a friendly minion, then summon a copy of it. I have a metered amount of, I don't want to call it frustration, but I'm just kind of like, about why they're trying to make Silence Priest work again. Like, I think it's a cool idea-ish, but we've been down this road before and it wasn't fun. What was it, a year ago when they tried to make this work? They've given a lot more love this time around, but I don't think this is going to get played in a Silence Priest. I think this is going to get played in a deck that just wants to have tempo and minions on board. So I think you play this and you play this on your Quill Boar, your Quill dude, right? You play your Quill dude. What's he called? I forgot his name already. You play your Henchclan. Yeah, you play your Henchclan Shade Quill, and then you play this card immediately after it, and you just get 2 copies of it, or 4 copies of it because you can play 4 of them. You're playing this for tempo. I don't think the Silence Priest, people are going to play with it. They experimented with it a lot when it was a thing before. But outside of experimentation, I think that the Silence Priest is probably not going to work as effectively as they tried to showcase it in the in the card reveal stream. But I do see this card seeing play in tempo and even control decks where you just want a big stat thing on the board.
So my immediate response to this card was, this is going to suck. Not the card, but I mean getting it played against you, because they're gonna play Lazul's Scheme, then they're gonna Shadow Madness, then they're gonna Unsleeping Soul, so they keep your minion, return it to full health while it has charge on. Well, I guess they get rid of the charge, but whatever. They get 2 copies of your minion, and you lose your minion for rude amounts of mana. Yeah,
for 8 mana, they're gonna steal and make a big copy of your 10 mana,
best
or 8 mana card. Yeah, sure. So but again though, it's gonna, and that's actually a really good point to make, because now not only are they getting 2 copies of a powerful minion for about the same price that you paid for it, but the tempo swing is they're also removing it from your board. The same reason why Mind Control had to be nerfed to 10 and it's still good. This card is better, because you can combo it with things like that, or Cabal Shadow Priest even, and all kinds of other stuff. Or you can discover this because there's ways to discover spells that still exist in the game. So, it's going to be a good card, but not in Silence Priest was my point. It's going to be good in other decks.
Well, yeah, I mean, you just took the words out of my mouth. It was like you listened to the last 3 cards I was talking about. Where
it's like we've known each other for almost a year or something. X.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, it's a bad card. It has a lot of potential. With Priest, it's hard to evaluate cards, in my opinion, because you have to look at their maximum upside.
Yes.
And you have to look at their minimum downside.
Yes.
And you have to look at what it is on average. And then you realize it's never going to be average because it never gets played in an average deck. Priest only plays bad cards and makes bad cards broken. I just generally don't know how to evaluate cards like this one in particular. I can think of a lot of really cool things to do with it, but they're mostly memes and probably bad. So I don't think it's good. I just think it's funny.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So with that assessment, what would you rate this card at?
I don't know. I could roll a 6-sided dice, and any of those numbers would be fine.
So it's less than less than a 7 to you, somewhere below a 7.
I'd put it at a 3. If I was pressed to give a number, I'd throw a 3 at it.
I think this card is going to be a 7. I think this card's going to get a lot of play. I think this card's going to get a lot of play, and I hate it. I hate that it's going to get a lot of play, but I think it's going to get a lot of play. I think it's going to get a lot of play for the same reason why Eternal Servitude gets a lot of play.
Because Eternal Servitude is broken.
Yeah, but this card it's more flexible than Eternal Servitude.
You're not wrong. Well, this one comes with the condition. Oh, so the other one comes with the condition you had to have a minion die this turn.
Yep.
This one comes with the condition you have to have a minion on your side of the board.
Yeah, but you're playing this in a deck, and the way that I'm talking about it is you're playing this in a deck where you're then later going to kill those 2 copies, and then you're going to resurrect them for 9 mana.
Yeah.
So that's why I think this card is going to see play. It's going to see play in those kind of frustrating decks, and it's going to be powerful when it works. I probably would have gone a little higher, but again, it's about playability. I don't think it's going to see play in every single deck. Right? It's going to be in the ultra control wall style priest decks, which wall priest is still going to exist, guys. It's just going to happen. Sorry, it's still going to exist. It's just going to be a lot. It's going to be different. But people are, as long as Topsy Turvy exists, wall priest is going to exist. So, so this deck's going to see some play.
Yeah, actually, I could see this. I was going to say I could see this in Divine Inner Priest, but I don't like. Yeah. I guess we're different, as we've known each other for a year. We're different. Yeah,
believe it or not. So I'm slightly higher on this card because, again, I tend to rate cards based on their maximum potential. You tend to rate them on your realistic potential, and that's great because it gives different perspective. So I'm okay with us being. This is the most we different on the card yet, but I just see this card being in the decks that we are all cursing in 2 months.
Oh yeah, if it's good, it's oppressive.
Yep,
I'll say that. If it's good, it's oppressive.
And that's why I'm rating it as high as I am. So, all right. I wanted you to have this one.
Mass Resurrection is a 9-mana priest spell. It's a rare, and it reads: summon 3 friendly minions that died this game. This is a fun card that is reminiscent of an old mechanic, just like Blizzard said they were going to be bringing back with this Rise of Shadows. They said they were going to be bringing back old mechanics. And, we haven't seen a Resurrect card in a while in Priest, so it's good that they're bringing this back. I'm not at all worried about it being a more consistent Diamond Spellstone, nor do I think that it's going to enable unfun or unfair strategies. I think that with the loss of nearly nothing that's important to a strategy like this, that it's going to have any effect on the meta. So with that evaluation, 0 out of 10. Azrael?
The fact that you kept that monotone, bleak, dour facade up the entire time without laughing was quite impressive. I was laughing over here. I was like, if he looks at me, he's gonna laugh. Yeah, the card just continues doing the things that we fucking hate. And yeah, I swear, I don't care. This one brings out the F-bomb. The things that we hate about Priest now. It's going to continue. This is a more consistent, easier to pull off Spellstone. Because you're paying 2 more mana, but you can play it as soon as you get it. You don't have to wait. You just play it.
Wait, you're telling me this? You're gonna play this on the first turn? You can?
Yeah. Oh yeah. 100%.
Wait, isn't that a skillful card? Like, shouldn't?
Nope. Nope. This is another one. This is one of those cards that just goes. Yeah, I put a bunch of high cost minions and spells in my deck, and I'm gonna get rewarded for it by playing this card. Or I stole your stuff, copied it, and now I'm gonna resurrect it and use it to smash you in the face with Topsy Turvy.
It doesn't resurrect silenced.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So this card is why I said Wall Priest is still going to exist, and why cards like the one we just talked about, why I put it right next to it, by the way, on Sleeping Soul, is going to get played, because this card is going to make Wall Priest still be a thing. For some reason, Blizzard said, yeah, we're tired of these oppressive OTK decks, and we're going to do things to make them change, and then we're going to put them right back in the deck. Right back in the game. So it is going to be, because you don't have the Shadow Visions, because you don't have the Lyras, because you don't have the ways to cheat them out as quickly. They only get 2 copies of it, but it doesn't matter. How many times did they need a 3rd or 4th copy of Spellstone to beat you with their resurrected stuff? Not often, You're
not wrong. Honestly, if it was me, if they were playing against me, I probably conceded 6 turns ago because I realized I was playing against a priest. So, but like, this is the main reason I hate this card is because it forces me to bring positive perspective to priest. Like, right at this moment, I have to tell Azrael, I have to tell you this card's not going to be good.
Good.
It does exactly the things we hate. Like, word for word, it is a better Lesser Diamond Spellstone. Like, I will take the 2 mana for always having it be 3. I will every time. I don't have to play 4 spells. Chilling. But a lot of the supporting cast for Wall Priest is going away. And in this set, they're printing a lot of really good mid-range cards and developing mid-range strategies. And we've already even talked about a few of them, but some of my favorites are coming up, so I'll hold on to that. But the mid-range strategy would be the Heal Druid that you had mentioned. I guess we only talked about one, but I know I had a few others in my head, so I'll leave those for later.
Mid-range Tempo Priest.
Yeah, or even a mid-range Tempo Priest. Yeah, it just would crush any deck that plays this and relies on this as a strategy because you can't reliably get to turn 9 with enough health to continue and win the game. Or, I mean, to continue on and to win the game. Like, you'll be able to get to turn 9. You'll be able to play your Mass Resurrection, but you don't have enough removal spells, especially not single target removal spells, which is where Priest kind of, anyway.
Yep.
To enable this deck. So I just don't think it's going to be good because there's not a deck for it right now. I think that Blizzard, close to rotation, so mark your calendars, chat, mark your calendars. If Hearthstone is still a game 2 years from now, then in, how many is that? That's 24 months?
Yeah.
-3. In 21 months, they're going to print an enabler for this card to be a deck. But they're not going to let it go on for more than one expansion.
Okay.
So
that's fair. And I hope to God you are right. But
God, I better be right because I just defended Priest. And if I defend a Priest for no damn reason, I'm going to be upset.
The fact that this card exists and the way that my brain is wired to see the worst possible scenario, until we are like in week 4 of the meta, and this Wall Priest isn't like the 10th most popular deck on the ladder, I'm going to live in fear of Wall Priest returning. So I hope you're right. I hope they don't find other clever ways to stay alive until they can make their 4 ridiculous, stupid minions come back to life and then hit you in the face with them flipped over. But
you flipped over or the minions?
It doesn't matter because I'll be table flipping and it'll all be relative anyway. But until I get a 3 or 4 weeks in the meta and see that Wall Priest isn't still a top 10 deck, then I'm still just going to be in fear of it. So I appreciate you trying to bring me down a notch, but I'm too traumatized to let my fear go just yet. I'm still sleeping with a gun under my pillow to shoot the Wall Priest when he kicks in my door in the middle of the night. Just saying. That said, is there anything else you want to add before we move on to rating it?
Yeah, let's rate it.
Hit me. I'll go first.
Yeah, please.
Because I live in terror of this perpetuating Wall Priest, I'm gonna have to give it a 7.
If you are right, I swear to God, we're not friends anymore.
Then I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong 3. On this card.
For that reason, 3. This is a 3 out of hope. This is not a 3 out of logic. This is a 3 out of hope.
So mine is a 7 out of fear, and yours is a 3 out of hope. This has got to be one of the strangest like rating dynamics ever.
If we had the rest of EO here, it would just be like a series of Star Wars episode names for how we feel about this card.
Yeah, 7 out of 10, living in fear. 3 out of 10, a new hope.
Exactly.
Oh my God. All right. Let's move on from this shit show and move on to this one. This is the first of the 2 Priest legendaries. It is a 3 mana, 3/2 minion, Madame Lazul, with the battle cry, discover a copy of a card in your opponent's hand. If I may kick this one off, I love this card.
Please do.
I love this card. I think it's slightly overcosted, but I love this card's design for a number of reasons. One, I think it's a fun card. I think it's a cool card. I like the idea of what this, I mean, I'm talking not objective at all. This is just purely emotional reaction to this card. I like the fact that it allows you to peek into your opponent's hand. Most skilled players know what an opponent is probably holding anyway. I mean, I'm sure you get this a lot, X. I know I get it on occasion too. People are like, how did you know as that they were going to play that? Because you play enough of the meta, you just kind of know how it works, right? But even still, having that little bit of information or having a little bit of confirmation is a fun mechanic. I like the ability to peer into that deck. I think it's also very, very powerful at times too. It's nice to know just on turn 3, especially in a world filled with druids where you never know what they are until turn 10. It's nice to be able on turn 3 to go, oh, he's a Togwaggle druid, not a Mechathune druid, not a name the 8 other freaking oppressive druid types that are out there.
Malagos.
Yeah,
so wait.
Exactly. So I like that effect a lot. I like the fact that it's a discover, and I just think it's a really cool design overall. So just from a design, an idea, and like a feeling standpoint, I really like this card. But beyond that, I think that the ability to peer into your opponent's hand can be very, very powerful in certain circumstances, and it just gives you the ability to add a probably powerful card to your hand, because it's going to be powerful relative to where you're playing it, right? If you want to play it on curve on turn 3, you're going to get something that's going to be probably useful to you in the early game, because your opponent probably has cards that are useful to him in the early game. If you top deck it on turn 10 or turn 15 or turn 20, you're probably going to get a card that's going to help you at that point in the game. So it's a contextually powerful card, or potentially contextually powerful card, which I also like. And like I said, it's only slightly okay, it's more than slightly overcosted for its stat line, because, you know, a 3 mana card vanilla test should be a 3/4 or a 3/3 with a good effect on it. But overall, I really like the card a lot, just emotionally, if nothing else. And I think it's going to be a card that's going to be in just about every priest deck, which makes it, to me, bumps up the rating as well.
So you think I'm going to slam or praise here, as slam or praise?
You're probably going to slam.
Okay, so let's go. You're wrong. This card is absolutely insane in the right deck, and it is not meant to be in control decks. Normally you see effects like this discover card in your opponent's hand, where you're gaining these bits of information in order to gain these incremental advantages over the long term, and that's how control decks work. Right. And this seems to fit into that sort of strategy. However, it's a 3 mana 3/2 that you're never going to want to play. You're A, never going to want to play on curve, and B, if you're playing a control deck, your cards should just in general be more powerful. Like, you would rather just play any random card that is more powerful than what your opponent's going to have in their hand at the time you're playing it. So then, that being said, you would need to play it on curve or close to on curve for it to be useful in this control deck, or excuse me, to make the cut in this control deck, because it would still be useful with the information, but to make the cut, it needs to be useful enough on curve. And I'm never going to play a 3 mana 3/2 ever on curve, unless its effect is good enough. But at that point in the game, as Azrael said, you're going to be discovering a card that's going to help you on turn 4, 5, or 6 normally, which you can just play good cards instead.
Right.
Cards that synergize with your bad cards. You know, the other bad cards in your priest deck, because you play priest.
Right.
But where I think this goes is surrender Miracle Priest. Mm-hmm. After thinking about it for a long time, because I was on the same page, and like even when we talked about it in the last episode, I was like, yo, this is just what Chameleus would be if he was good. You could C3, you know? Mm-hmm. But this goes into that aggro deck, and the reason why it goes into Surrender Priest is because, you know, you're giving up your 3 mana crystals, but then you get to play this card, and excuse me, let me back up a little bit. You're giving up your 3 mana crystals, so that means you shouldn't put anything too high cost in your deck, because you're going to be 3 turns behind if you're trying to play a 6 mana cost card. You can't do that until turn 9, mm-hmm. and a 6 mana cost card given +2/+2 on turn 9 is still not good enough.
Right.
Like, Gen Greymane would be matching up against, I don't know, Sleepy Dragon. You know, like, just, and those aren't good cards. Those are just regular vanilla minions. Mm-hmm. 6, they give you an idea of what the difference of 3 mana crystals are. But if you were able to get one of your opponent's cards without having to sacrifice your deck and your strategy that is a higher cost and has a decent power level or a decent effect,
Right.
that really helps you out in these aggressive strategies.
Yes.
And I really feel like Blizzard is pushing Miracle Priest, or at least I'm able to reverse, like, I'm living in a delusional, psychotic world where Miracle Priest is going to be a good deck and I'm going to play it. So there's your context, chat. I mean, but yeah, overall, it is a powerful card. People are going to find a way to play it. I have 100 ways in my head that I could just right now rattle off to put this in different decks, but just watch. You guys are going to see it everywhere. It's a great card.
I think so.
I'm ready to give it a number if you're okay with it.
I'm 100% ready because I think
9.
we've Are you really giving it a 9?
I'm really giving it a 9. It is so good.
I'm giving it a 9 as well. I love this card. Like I said, I started off with the emotional side of it because I'm just excited for it because there's so much that I love about what they're doing with the card design. But then when you think about it practically, it's just a good card. It's just a good card. It's good. Like I said, it's going to be in, and like I said, one of the reasons why I had to bump it up is it's going to be in almost every single priest deck.
I think that in the best control priest decks, it's not going to make the cut, but I think it will in some of the larger mid-range decks to where they're like on that borderline, where Handlock has always lived on that borderline between.
Yep. Yeah, I think it's going to be in. People are going to take like the super optimized versions of decks that this should go in that this wouldn't fit in, and they're going to take one card out to put it in just because a lot of people are going to like the ability to see their opponent's hand because they're not going to have maybe the comfort with the meta or the reading skill that some more experienced players might have. So they're going to put it in just for that alone. But I think that you're going to see that as well. So, but I agree. 9 out of 10. This was almost a 10 for me. This was almost my first 10.
Yeah.
But I had to scale it back just a little bit because I realized it's not going to be in every single deck.
I'm glad we met here after being surprisingly different on the last two. Like we're converging.
Yeah. We'll set. Oh, there's gonna be cards we differ on some more. So, like for example, this one.
For example, Katrina Muerte. It is the other priest legendary. Katrina Muerte is an 8-mana minion. Its stat line is 6 attack and 8 health, and it reads: at the end of your turn, summon a friendly minion that died this game. What? As I know that I've read it and I speak the language that I was pronouncing the letters and words of, but can you explain to me once again what this card does and why Blizzard thinks it's okay?
Okay, well, this card is one of the things we talked about already that Blizzard said they wanted to throw back to prior mechanics. This is a direct nod to Kel'Thuzad from the Naxxramas expansion. A tamer version of it, priest-only tamer version of it, but it enables more resurrection. From the emotional standpoint of the fact that I loved Kel'Thuzad back in the day, I'm kind of excited about this card. I hate to admit it. Like, don't look at me in the eyes when I talk about this, X. I'm ashamed, but I kind of excited for this card just because I loved that aspect of. That or with what's his name? Holy crap!
Bonsandi?
No. The oh my god, the old god. N'Zoth.
Yeah, N'Zoth.
Yeah. Sorry, because I always like those kind of effects, and I like super greedy value death rattle priest decks. So there's a part of me that's like, okay, this reminds me of some of the fun decks that I used to love to play with priest. So emotionally, I'm very, very high in this card. But again, it's another way for super wally priest type decks to exist and persist and be obnoxious. It's a hard card to evaluate though, because I would rather just play Resurrection than play this in that style of deck. But this feels like it fits in a death rattle priest all day long, a mid-rangey trade your dudes in kind of priest. So it can actually kind of fill a niche where you're not going to have both this and resurrect in the deck, but you might have this in that mid-range or even your silence priest deck as a way to just get more value, not just a death rattle deck. So I actually like the card a lot. I'm okay with the card, as much as it feels weird to say that because we're so sick and tired of death rattle. Like when I first saw this card, I was like, stop printing resurrection stuff. But then I got thinking about it more and more and more, and I was like, you know what? This doesn't go in that deck. So I'm a little more okay with it.
This doesn't go in Wall Priest. You're right.
Yeah.
This goes in much more annoying decks. I'm going to nod my head to Wild real quick, and then bring it back to Standard, which is our primary focus.
Absolutely talk about Wild, because Wild does exist.
Wild does exist, and we keep saying sorry Wild, but honestly, a lot of the cards we've been sorry Wilding it's been a little
Memey.
sarcastic, a little bit, because they don't make the cut in with the Wild decks. This one, though, however, I think actually does fit into Big Priest, which is one of the tightest lists in Wild. Because the only way this is ever bad is if you can't resurrect it after you hit it with Barnes. Because if let's say you hit it with Barnes,
pull it out,
then they kill both of your minions. Yep. You drop a resurrect. You're now pulling up Katrina as a 6/8, who then pulls up either a 3/4 Barnes or a Katrina again, which now you have 2 Katrinas. And if on turn 3, or let's say you coin Barnes, you always coin Barnes. So for 4 mana, they have to be able to deal with 2 6/8s, or they're going to have 4 6/8 the following. This is disgusting in Big Priest. It is just disgusting. And then we take it over to Standard. Okay. So at least there's nothing annoying they can do with it in Standard, right? Because if you were wanting to play bad cards, let's say, I don't know, Sen'jin Shieldmaster is a 4 mana 3/5 taunt. Then we have Witchwood Grizzly, everybody knows, 5 mana 3/12, 1 less health for each card in your opponent's hand. Then at 6 mana you have Fell Creeper, 6 mana 3/6 taunt.
Fen Creeper.
Fen Creeper, yep. And then you have at 7 mana some other taunt that I haven't remembered off the top of my head right now. And you just curved all the way from turn 4 with fat, butted taunts into resurrecting a taunt every freaking turn.
Yeah.
And making your aggro opponent cry. This is going to go right into... Oh, man. Sorry, I had to dial my brain back a moment. My brain back a moment.
It's fine. When you go off like that, I think it gives people a lot of insight, because it's easy to look at a card like this and go, I can see that in this deck, or I can see it in that deck. But when you go off on a stream of consciousness like that and go through an actual curve, I think it gives people a mental picture that sometimes is hard to visualize, especially when you're sitting here watching a stream and you don't have your deck list in front of you and you can't flip through stuff. So I think that actually helps people a lot. So don't apologize for utilizing one of your best talents.
Oh, I was going to start making some off-color comments about this card.
Oh, okay.
Some not okay things to say about anything type of comments. That's why I needed to dial it back, because this card is...
I gotcha.
If it's good, it's broken. If it's bad, it's only almost broken.
Okay. So, is there anything else that we want to touch on in this card? Or are we prepared? Are we prepared to grade it? Because I'm prepared. I think we're probably going to be, for different reasons, I think we're probably going to be close to the same number on this card.
I go first this time. I'm hitting it with that 8 out of 10.
8 out of 10, really?
Yeah.
Okay. I had 7.5. 7.5.
Yeah, we were right there.
Yeah.
We were right there.
7.5.
This card is so... Oh my God. I don't ever want it. This is the card you were talking about earlier, as when they play it, you hit concede. You go this way, then you go that way, then you click on the little gear, then you go up and hit the red button.
Well, it also, that's sometimes true. It just depends on what's in the res pool, right? Like there are ways to
see when your turn starts.
Well, yeah, but there are ways to mess with the res pool now.
True, you're not wrong.
And we're going to get to some of those cards in a little bit. So that's one of the reasons, by the way, that I did not rate this card higher. Because initially when I saw this card, I was like, screw it. Like I said, I had to dial it back when I thought about it. But I was in Denver on vacation when this card was announced, and Brooke and I looked at this card and we were like,
"Oh, I remember."
No, we got like mad, and I've been thinking about it ever since. And I'm like, okay, all right, let me think about this a little bit. And then I realized there's a lot of ways to mess with your deck and your resurrect pool and your summon abilities and a bunch of other things that are going to kind of temper this back. So keep this card in mind, this conversation in mind, as we look at a few other cards that we're going to see here. So I dialed it back just a little bit, but I do think this is a very powerful card, and in the right deck, it's going to fit in. It won't always work because of the way that there's going to be to disrupt things now and mess with rest pools, but it will be in those decks. And when it works, you're going to hit that concede button real quick. And also keep in mind, it's not as powerful as N'Zoth or as Kel'Thuzad, because it doesn't resurrect one that died this turn like Kel'Thuzad did, or like all of them that died this turn like Kel'Thuzad did, and it doesn't resurrect all of whatever cards. It resurrects one from the entire game. So it could be your minion that died on turn 1 or 2, or it could be your power minion that just died last turn. So there's that too.
Priest also hasn't famously had many decks that played a lot of minions. Let's be honest.
Which makes this card really good. Yes.
It's because it's worse than Kel'Thuzad and N'Zoth because you can't control it.
Yes.
But it's better because I hate it more.
Can't argue with that. All right. So before we move on to the next class, let's just take a moment and pause and talk about the overall state of Priest, like we did with Druid. So if you want to take a minute and comment on it real quick, and then we'll move on to the next class.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's one card I briefly brought up, which was Auchenai Phantasm, that during the set review that me and RuneClouds had done for it was Boomsday, right? I think, Pretty sure it was Boomsday when it came out. Me and RuneClouds and myself, we did the past 3 set reviews.
And he was supposed to be here today too.
Yep. He was supposed to be here today, but unfortunately, he fell victim to that which is con crud. So, but yeah, I rated that card at an 8 out of 10, and I said specifically at that point, I was like, it's not going to be good now, but you look at this card and you look at a few other cards, and you guys can pull up the VOD. I said, you look at this card and a few other cards, and I guarantee next set Priest is going to be a tier 1 class, and because it has Miracle ability, and now we're looking at the cards being released, it still has Miracle ability. I think the Priest is going to be one of the top classes, honestly. It's
we were put on the spot last week, and we were asked, without seeing all the cards, what we thought the top sets or the top classes were going to be. And Priest was on my list. I don't remember if it was on yours, but it was on my list, and that was before we even had all the cards. And now seeing all the cards, I'm right there with you. I still think it's going to be one of the top 3 classes, top 4 for sure. Top 4 for sure. I think this, the things that we've seen, like taken in context of like Silence Priest, make it look kind of meh. But when you take it in context of the things that we've been talking about, like Priest's ability to make meh cards bonkers, and the fact that elements of what makes Priest good now are still going to exist, even though they won't be as easy to pull off or as pervasive, they're still going to exist. I see little to no reason with especially with like some of the big like 4/7 for 4 mana cards that they're getting, some of these clutch cards that they're getting coming into the meta, why they should lose a top of the third or top third position for sure. So I think overall Priest, while they didn't get a lot of like super bonkers cards, they got just enough bonkers cards to make them a serious top of the meta contender.
I hate Priest and I can't wait to play
it. I think that, okay, moving on. I think you summed it up right there. Next up we have Hunter now. Hunter is Hunter is the next class that we have lined up, and why don't you kick us off with the first card?
Yeah, so with Azrael's favorite class, I want to put that out there because Azrael, I want to make sure everyone knows Azrael probably has the best objective perspective. Whatever, I'll say a bunch of words. I went with IVE. He looks at these Hunter cards gooder than the rest of us.
Maybe. So there might be a little fanboy mixed in there too, but I'll try to be as open about my fanboyism as I can.
Fair enough. I like this first card. Its name is Ursatron. It is a 3-mana 3/3 mech that reads Death Rattle. Draw a mech from your deck. This card, when I look at it, I see Stitch Tracker if Stitch Tracker was playable. Stitch Tracker did see play, but never was it playable.
Right. It saw play because of its effect in a particular deck was necessary, so they made it work. I only ran one copy of Stitch Tracker most of the time because of the fact that it never felt good to Stitch Tracker.
I have a million things I could say about that deck and how to optimize it, but this is not that place.
Sure.
This is not that place. But
I actually preferred in that deck to run doesn't matter. The point is that I agree with you. I agree with you that I like this card. I like the fact that as much as I don't like Mech Hunter, and why I don't know why they decided Mech Hunter was going to be the mech class when Warrior's already kind of the mech class. I don't know what they're trying to push with that. I don't get it. If it's like a WoW thing, I played WoW for on and off for 15 years. I don't get why Hunter is the class that feels most mechy. I don't get that.
Because there's robot bears.
Yeah, I don't get it. I don't get why they're doing it, but I do like the fact that it does kind of help enable a mech deck, because just like you have Master's Call to help enable beast decks, this does enable mech decks. Its stat line is okay because it has draw attached to it, and draw that synergizes with a deck that's probably going to play this. That makes it justifiable to be a 3-mana 3/3. I'm going to have to test it a lot in Hunter mech decks to see if I like it. There are some mech synergies from Boomsday that can have potential with this. I'm not super excited about this card. I think it's okay. I see why it's a common card. It's right now it's okay, but the draw card Death Rattle does give me some reason to push it a little higher than just okay. So it's an okay card with upside.
The part that I don't like about the draw is that it's attached to a Death Rattle. I in general don't like things that are attached to Death Rattle, because then the condition is it needs to live long enough to die and not be silenced.
Yeah.
Or not be transformed.
Yeah, and one of the things that I really feel like they've done a little bit in this new set with Hunter is it feels like they're trying to push more of a mid-range or a hybrid Hunter. You can go maybe hybrid mech, but they definitely want like a hybrid beast. They don't want Hunter to be as fast as it's been, and by putting Death Rattle on there instead of Battle Cry, it slows the deck down a little bit. It slows the class down a little bit. And Hunter's a very fast deck by design, with its hero power being 2 to the face every turn. It's going to be a fast deck. So if you made it, if this was a Battle Cry draw mech from your deck, this card would be a lot higher in my book.
Oh,
a lot higher. But because it's a Death Rattle, I'm just kind of like, okay, it's a 3/3 that has mech synergy, that also has a little bit of upside. But yeah, ultimately you want to trade it, which if you're playing an aggressive Hunter, you want to trade as little as possible. And if you're playing a mid-range Hunter, I don't know if a 3/3 with a okay Death Rattle is good enough to make the cut.
It's not even an okay Death Rattle. How many mechs, aka bad cards, do you need to run in a class that has a lot of good cards in order to make this bad card work?
Yeah, that's exactly it. I'm being generous by saying it's kind of an okay upside. I mean, that's like I'm trying to like it more than it is. So it's an okay card. So it's okay. It's not great. Probably not going to make the cut even in Mech Hunter though.
It made me realize, like looking at this card made me realize that Dr. Evil is going to be the next hero card, because I'm serious. You're talking about it being mech class. Like the next card we're about to show, if for those of you who don't know, sorry, I'm going to give them the inside scoop, is actually, it's called Shark with a freaking laser beam attached to his head. And it synergizes with Dr.
I knew where you were going with this.
I had to. There was a Robo Bear.
Which is technically a mech, right? I mean, it's like, it's got mechanical.
It's got a freaking laser beam.
Freaking laser beams.
But yeah.
So
overall, 3 out of 10. There's a lot of 3s on it. Let's go with a 3.
I don't even know if I could do 3 out of 10 on this card.
Yeah, honestly. It's pretty bad.
Honestly, it's I'm going to say 2. I'm going to say 2. I originally had a 3 on this card when I first started looking at it. And then when I looked at the Hunter set overall, this is clearly, in my opinion, is why I put it first, clearly the weakest card in all of the Hunter cards that I've looked at least in my opinion. At one point I went to a 1. But I'm like,
God.
But yeah, just because honestly, we'll see some experimentation early on. I cannot see where somebody looks at the Hunter cards that are available, even the mech cards that are available, and goes, "This is going to beat out some 3-drops that exist." No, come on, you're going to play Animal Companion over this, even in a mech deck, right? I mean, like, I just don't see how this card can make the cut, but it will see some play. It will not be out of play entirely, so I can't go that low. Realistically at 2, because I don't see wanting to play this card. Not right now. Maybe in a set or 2 when they do more with it, but not right now. It's a 2 for me. Moving on. This,
I can feel your frustration, Azrael. Like, why?
I'm okay with them wanting to do mech deck or mech hunter, but like, actually do it. Like, don't turn this into free shaman, right? Because that's kind of what it feels like. I don't know. This next card, though, I am actually excited for. The next card is a 1-mana 1/1 minion beast, the Shimmerfly, which reads Death Rattle, add a random hunter spell to your hand. You guys know I love Spell Hunter. Spell Hunter is probably not going to exist in the new meta, just because cards that help enable it are going away. But some sort of hybrid hunter, which is what I've been experimenting with a lot, is going to be a thing. I'm going to make it a thing, even if nobody else wants it to be a thing. But it's going to be a thing. The cards exist to make it a thing. It's a thing now, and enough of the cards that make it work exist, or are going to, or cards are going to come in that help to make it persist, are going to happen. And this is one of those cards. And one of the reasons why Spell Hunter is fun and is viable is because pound for pound, Spell Hunter or Hunter spells are pretty good. They're pretty good.
They hold their own against everybody.
Yeah, even they're not the most powerful, but they're not the least powerful. And the thing that makes them really good, I think, is most of them are appropriately costed. Right? Like, name a hunter spell that feels like the price isn't right on it. Right?
We haven't gone over the card yet, but that one. Yeah,
right. There's maybe one or two. Right. The point is overall they feel good for what they do. Most of them feel effective. It like a random hunter spell feels better than like a random priest spell usually does, for example.
If Witch's Cauldron said hunter instead of shaman on it, broken.
That's a great example. It's a great example. So again, it's a little slower because of the death rattle on it, but this card is something you're going to play on turn 1, and then you're going to trade it in to buff up your Scavenging Hyena anyway. And then you're going to get the added bonus of, pulling a kill command or something out of it for even more smork. I think it's a great card overall. I like it. Anytime you get a 1-mana 1/1 with the beast tag that also does a thing, it's been shown, it's been proven to be good in Hunter.
It's funny you say it that way, because my exact valuation of this card is as such. Everything I have prepared for this card. It's a 1-mana 1/1 do nothing. Not good.
That's
you
fair.
said it's a 1-mana 1/1 does something.
Well, it does when it dies. It does have a thing on it that when it dies. You are right. When you play it, it's a 1-mana 1/1 that does nothing at the time. But it has that. But again, I'm thinking of this. You mentioned it earlier. I tend to play the long game when I play Hunter. So I'm envisioning this being in a mid-range leaning control hunter style deck. That's what I envision this going into. People are going to put it in their mid-range hunter because there's just not going to be a lot of 1-mana beasts. Some of the important 1-mana cards are leaving, and you'd want to play this in a mid-range hunter over Argent Squire or something like that. So I'm envisioning this being in a mid-range or a spell-based hybrid hunter, or even a slower, almost control hunter.
So, how do you think it compares to Witch's Apprentice? And for those of you who don't remember off the top of your head, Witch's Apprentice is a shaman minion that is a 0/1 taunt, battle cry, add a random shaman spell to your hand. How does this compare to that 1-mana card?
Well, it's a slightly difficult comparison to make. It's nice that Witch's Apprentice has the battle cry, but it's a 0-mana taunt or 0 attack taunt. It's a thing that sits on the board. This can actually do something, and it synergizes with your beast buffs, right? So I actually think this is slightly better than that, even though it's a death rattle instead of a battle cry. But if it was a battle cry, this card would be like insanely good. So it would have to be like 3 mana or something. The point is, it would be very powerful if it was a battle cry. And so I would rather see this card be a 1-mana 1/1 with the death rattle than have them change it to a battle cry and either make it cost 2 mana or something else, because I think that hunter needs some 1-mana beasts at all levels to be competitive. So I get where you're trying to go with it, and I want you to make your point on it, but that's my perspective on it. So go ahead and make your point on it now.
Okay, so overall, my valuation of this card is It's a 1-mana 1/1, does nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So you ready to move to rating?
Yeah, we can do that. That's fine.
2 out of 10. Like I have nothing more to say about it. 2 out of 10.
5 out of 10. I think it's going to see play in right now, especially. It's going to fill the spot of a lot of mid-range decks. It's going to be an activator for Scavenging Hyena. It's going to take the spot of the Dire Moles, like I said. You're going to see it in Spell Hunters, I shouldn't say Spell Hunters. I mean Hybrid Hunters, or Spell Damage Hunters. So I think it's going to see the amount of plays and the experimentation it's going to see, at least for the first 3 months of the meta, it's going to be a 5 for me for that.
Really beautiful art though, and it kind of reminds me, like, it's reminiscent of the Japanese tattoo,
like the koi.
styling.
Yeah.
I don't know, that just popped into my head. It's a really beautiful picture, the Shimmerfly is. But
I agree. Very good art.
That's all I got.
Next we have
Rapid Fire, which is a 1-mana hunter spell. It's a common, and it reads, Twin Spell, do 1 damage. We're not going to reiterate what Twin Spell is. We're just going to say that it is 2 pings. It is 2 pings in a class that could forever and a day use a ping. This is kind of like a Candle Shot, only it doesn't get destroyed by Gluttonous Ooze. It's kind of like a Candle Shot, only it doesn't get destroyed by Acidic Swamp Ooze. It's kind of like Candle Shot, only slightly worse. Because Candle Shot, just pound for pound, was the card that healed more than any other card in the game. For 1 mana, it healed up to 30 damage.
Yep.
Yep. Commonly, it healed like 10 to 12 for 1 mana while destroying minions. But no, Candle Shot was a fine card. No one ever complained about it.
Well done. Anything else you want to say?
Yeah, it's a card that you're going to see of a lot in packs, and if you bought the 80 pack bundle, you're going to have 120 of these. Pack filler.
I think this card is going to be ubiquitous in Hunter.
Oh man, explain.
It does a thing that Hunter struggles at, which allows you to ping stuff. That right there alone is why Arcane Shot sees play in decks, right? Before Candle Shot was a thing. It's why Candle Shot was in every deck, because dealing 1 extra damage is very important to a Hunter. The amount of spell damage modifiers or ways that they're putting in this expansion or in the previous one, I think there was a couple cards that they put in the last couple expansions as well, that they're pushing spell damage Hunter. They're pushing it, and they're putting cards in that enable it. I think that this card is probably going to be in, I'd say, better than 60% of Hunter decks, at least for the first 2 or 3 months. I think this is I think it's a good card. I don't think it's a great card, but I think what makes it a good card is that it has a high floor and a high ceiling, right? Because one of the most important things about this card is, what does it say?
Twin Spell?
No, this part right here, not this part. Just says deal 1 damage. It doesn't say to a minion. It doesn't say what it does. You can do it to somebody's face. So you can with a card we're going to see later, you can combo that with a certain card we're going to see later and get 6 damage to somebody's face for 2 mana, or more with other things that you can combo with. So for 2 mana you're going to get 6 damage. For another 3 mana you're going to get 5 more damage. For another 3 mana you're going to get 5 more damage. That's 8 mana right there. And with the weapon that this is going to combo with, that's another 3 damage right there. That's huge burst potential. There are going to be people that are going to make this work, or they're going to use this to get that ping damage off. I really like this card. I think it's a high floor, high ceiling, but it doesn't have a place in every deck, but it's going to be in a lot of decks. I'm giving this card a 6.5 out of 10.
You know what, Az? I think you kind of convinced me. I'm gonna slide it right into my wild Malagos Dragon Hatcher Hunter deck. It's gonna be. Does that one have Starliner in it? No, that one's Starlinerless. Yeah. So
it's interesting you mentioned that.
It's nuts.
It's interesting you mentioned that, but I legitimately am theory crafting Hunter decks that use Malagos.
Actually, get with me in a couple days, because I have one that I ran for a while that was actually pretty good. When I say pretty good, I mean it didn't suck.
I will. I will definitely get with you for that, because I can probably mix your notes with mine and come up with something that I actually want to play quite a bit, because I'm definitely experimenting. I've been looking at since they've released all the cards. I've been looking at a lot of spell hunter based decks that have Malygos in there as a finisher. Right.
I'm excited to see what you have you've come up with.
I mean, for the same reason why Malygos works in Druid and in Rogue, when you give somebody a 1 mana deal 1 multiple times spell, I mean, and then you couple it with the weapon and all the other things that potentially Hunter is going to be able to pull off. I think the potential for this card is pretty high. That's why we spent 3 minutes talking about about this card. But like I said, I'm pretty optimistic about this card. I could be way wrong, but this card I look at and I go, it at the very least, it fills a niche that we're losing with Candle Shot, which will need to be filled, right? That's why it has a high floor, right? It's filling a need, but it has that potential to work with the things that they're doing with it, which is why I see it being having some potential. So I'm sorry, what was your score on this one? You said 2?
No, I didn't say anything. I was still. I wasn't still doing anything. I was just listening to you. You had a lot of really good points on that, especially just in response to my snide comment about it. I think probably a 4. The card doesn't impress me much. It needs to slide into a deck archetype that doesn't exist, and a deck archetype that I tried to make exist. Now, mind you, we're missing a lot of cards, and it just like I said, we just don't see eye to eye on this one. I got hit with that 4. The usable. Barely.
Yeah. And you know what, though? It's interesting that you put it at a 4, because if I'm wrong about this card, a 4 is probably where it's going to end up being. It's going to be filling that Candle Shot, or that I need the Arcane Shot when people put that in decks. It's refilling that spot. But I just see that upside potential, and we'll get more into that as we move forward. Mm-hmm. Next we have, is this mine or yours? You can take it.
I don't know, but I'll take it.
Yeah, you take it.
No. 9 lives. This is such a fantastic card. I love this card, actually. A lot of fun. Super cool. Value Hunter is going to be nuts. Now let me tell you what it does. So 9 lives is a 3 mana Hunter spell. It reads, discover a friendly Death Rattle minion that died this game. Also, trigger its Death Rattle.
Huge.
This card it opens the world for people who have nothing but bad ideas, because like if you have a bad miserable Hunter combo, this is probably easily going to slot into it. This could slot it. I mean, it almost makes the cut in Mechathune Hunter, just barely missed, which is going to be a good deck. But yeah, overall, like this card, it does something that Hunter has not ever been able to do, which is resurrect. And that's something that I think should not be underrated, because it's not a true resurrection because it puts the card in your hand. The only similar effect I've seen Hunter have was on Abominable Bowman, which went in my Starliner Hunter deck. Yes, I made a lot of really bad Hunter decks. That's how good Rexar was. I made Starliner Hunter work because Deathstalker Rexar was a card.
Right?
I had Starliner go off.
Right. Heck yeah.
To get back on track, it's a powerful card. It is a very powerful card. I think it's going to be in the right decks. It's going to be, you're going to groan when they play it, but then you're going to be able to flip up. Okay, so now how do I deal with it? He's going to play this next turn, and then you have chance to prepare.
Right. Go. Right. No, I agree. I think it's another one of those cards that I love the design on, and also the card art is quite good on this one as well. But I love the design of this card. It's discover with some control, because you get to decide the pool of things that are in your graveyard, because you put them in your deck for the most part, and you decide when you're going to play it. So you should know what's in your resurrect pool at that point. It opens up some interesting combo ideas, right? It opens up some potential for getting extra value out of things like your Spider Bombs or your Savannah Highmanes or whatever. I think you nailed it. This is the Value Hunter is going to be a thing, right? and this deck is going to slot right in there perfectly. And even still, even in more aggressive decks, right? Like mid-range hunter, this fits in mid-range hunter just because Shimmerfly and Savannah Highmane exist, right? That's just two that are going to go into a lot of mid-range hunters, right? This is going to happen whether you like it or not. Heck, you could put it in there with Loot Hoarder just for card draw, and then boom, that's another one that can work in this deck. That's just off the top of my head without even looking at the entire cornucopia. And there's some good death rattles we haven't even talked about yet in the neutral pool. So I love this card a lot. I think it's great. I think it's a great card.
The card I like it best with? It's a card we haven't talked about.
Megathune?
Nope.
Just kidding.
It is I think it's called Henchclan Hogsteed. Yeah, exactly. Henchclan Hogsteed.
Yes.
And we'll go over that, and you'll remind me to talk about that card when,
I will.
Or talk about 9 Lives when that card comes up. But yeah.
This card is another one of those cards that I like a lot because it's a high floor, high ceiling, and it rewards good decision making, both in what you choose to put in your deck and when you choose to fire this card off. So I love the card design of it, and I think it has a lot of potential.
Yeah, that's a 5.5, 6 out of 10 for me. Like it's right on that borderline.
6 is where I put it as well.
Yeah.
Yes, 6. I had to double check. Yeah, 6 is where I put this one. And I'm actually surprised it didn't go higher because I remember thinking about this card and actually falling in love with the possibilities. But I remember consciously reining myself in that it's only going to happen in ideal circumstances. But when this card hits, it's going to hit high. But even when it misses, it's still going to miss. You're still going to have a safety net because you have so much control over what it's going to resurrect. And that's why I think it's just going to be a solid card.
I think it's even good if you only have like 2 Death Rattle minions deck, like you were saying, but I'm like in the high value ones. So you're right. Why don't you take Mark Shot for us, Az?
Okay. Mark Shot is another hunter spell. It feels like they're introducing more spells in this expansion than they normally do. Is that me? I agree. Compare. But it feels like we're getting like 50 or even 60% spell to minion ratio.
That's one of the reasons I was saying that it feels like they're pushing more class identity, more like you want to have 20 class cards instead of 20 neutral cards. Right. And I think that's going to be good for the meta that they're putting more spells in because spells are very powerful.
I agree. And there's classes that have needed good spells to really round out their deck for a while, or their classes for a while. But getting back to this card, it's a 4-mana hunter spell, common hunter spell, Marked Shot, that reads deal 4 damage to a minion, discover a spell. And also, awesome card art on this card as well. Love this card.
Beautiful.
Oh, it's so good. If you haven't seen this card, please look it up. I love this card design a lot. It's an expensive spell, but I love me my discover mechanic. It is probably realistically too expensive to fit into a lot of decks. This to me screams like Control Hunter. This to me screams like this would fit in like a Recruit Hunter or a like a Death Rattle Hunter or something like that, where you just need another way to deal with something on the board until you get the thing off that you want to get off. We don't know if that excuse me, sorry about that. We don't know if that style of hunter is going to exist yet. I have to sit down and really chew over it. The most common decks that I think we're going to see right now are going to be mid-range or hybrid or spell damage. This looks like it would fit into that, but it's too expensive, I think, and there's just going to be better options. So I love the card design. I like what it does, but I think it's going to be limited, at least initially, in what it can fit into. So that's going to lower my rating on it just a little bit.
You know the witch, the set called the Witchwood. There was a card that came out with it called Wing Blast that was it read 4 mana, deal 4 damage to a minion. This one is just markedly better because this also discovers a spell. Oh wait, no. This one's trash because Wing Blast actually costs 1 mana.
Right.
This card's bad. Next.
Yeah. What do you give it?
I'm gonna hit it with that 3, dog.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think I'm gonna hit it with a 4 because I think it's gonna see some play, some experimentation, and I'm certainly gonna try to make it work. And I think it's one of those cards, like I said, that if you can get it into the right kind of deck, it's gonna fit nicely. but it's going to be hard to justify it over cards like Wing Blast or even Kill Command or Mark Shot. There's a lot of competition for this card to work. If it could work, it would work really well, but I don't think it's going to make the cut. But I'm definitely going to experiment with it. So I'm a little bit higher on it than that, but still 4 is pretty low for me and my Hunter fanboyism.
Oh, yeah, you're not wrong.
So moving on.
Yep, so Hunting Party is the next card we have. It's a 5-mana Hunter spell, and it reads, copy all beasts in your hand. And when I read this card, when I looked at this card, I was just confused. I was like, why on earth do you have beasts in your hand on turn 5? And then I realized my confusion was completely justified and decided this card was not good. And Azrael, can you explain to me how on earth this might be used to some viable strategy?
It's way too expensive to be good in mid-range or aggressive hunters. This to me says control hunter or some sort of super greedy hunter that doesn't exist right now. This feels like
are you going to copy Undasta? Like, that's the only thing I could think of.
Yeah, like Undasta or King Crush or some big, like this is like some attempt to make a new version of Recruit Hunter at some time in the future, or
Malagos.
That's another
great example. Isn't a beast, never mind.
Yeah, that's another example of the kind of thing that you want to be thinking about, though. Is like stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
I don't think the archetype exists for this card yet, but I think that this is like a card that in an expansion or two we're going to be like, hey, remember Hunting Party? Let's try it. So look, right now in the context of this expansion, I'll probably experiment with it. I'll try to make some super greedy freaking deck out of it, but it's not going to be good. What do you give it?
So this one's hard to evaluate because immediately my mind goes to Halatsi Starving Buzzard, right? Copying all the Halatsi little dudes, so you just draw like 97 cards, which would be super cool. Mm-hmm. But like realistically, that's just never going to freaking happen.
Yeah.
It's a 1. This is a 1. This is a true 1. Right. This is just bad.
It has to be 5 mana because of how powerful its effect is. Even if it was 1 or 2 mana less, it would be like busted because you're going to Master's Call and you're going to duplicate all of your stuff. And you're going to put stuff on the card. That's what makes this card forces it to be at best a greedy mid range and realistically some sort of like control or combo we think that doesn't exist right now for Hunter. So because of that, it just doesn't have a place. In the right meta, this could be a really, really good card. But from what we see right now, it's going to be too hard to make work in any kind of viable, legitimate deck. I give it a 2. I give it a 2. Yeah. It's not completely unplayable. I'm sure, and you probably will experiment with it at some point. Somebody will find a way to make it work, but it's just not going to be consistent enough to see legitimate competitive play. Yep, but it's not completely unplayable. It's just not playable now.
This goes to the same place as Ursatron in the Dust Collection.
There you go. Moving on. Which is interesting, by the way. We're moving through these Hunter cards pretty quickly. As much as I love Hunter, but I think I've spent a lot of time chewing on these, so I'm able to, I think, to be more concise in my feelings on them. And a couple of them are just kind of like not ready.
Yeah, I get that same feeling. This card, like this card actually that we're about to talk about, summarizes how I feel about Hunter this set as a whole. Just slightly anemic, right? It's just almost there. All the cards are almost there. Right. They're almost there.
Well, I think it's interesting that you point that out. I would agree with that for the most part. And I think part of that is because Hunter is in a good place right now. Even with the cards it's losing, it's still going to be in a pretty decent place. Like, it can lose Rexar right now. It still has Zul'jin, which is a very powerful card. But it can lose Rexar right now, and still mid-range Hunter is going to be good. Mid-range Hunter, well, I should say it's going to be viable. Mid-range Hunter is not going away. It's not. Rexar was a clutch way to almost guarantee in a lot of games that you were going to win, and it gave them a way to win matchups that they would otherwise not have a way to win. But if mid-range Hunter fires off the way that it's designed to fire off, right, and you just don't get unlucky with that, 1 in 15 games where you just draw terribly, you're going to be able to win by turn 6 or turn 7 like you're supposed to, and it's going to be fine. You won't need Rexar because you're going to be, calculating lethal when you be playing Rexar. So I think that's one of the reasons why the cards can be afforded to be a little more like meh, because Hunter's just in a good spot now, even after losing some of the cards that it's losing. Because it's losing, we didn't talk about what it's losing. It's losing Spellstone, which everybody knows just got nerfed, but is also very powerful. And it's losing Rexar, and it's losing the holy crap. The other.
I actually, honestly, I didn't even look into what Hunter was losing because I just
Crackling
know
Razor
that
Maw
was going. Crackling Razor Maw is going.
That's the one. Crackling Razor Maw, and it's losing. For mid range. It's losing Dire Mole. Those are some of the big ones that it's losing. And even without those, I think that mid range is strong enough to where what that will do. It's one reason why they didn't nerf things, right? Is because they know once those go, those will be the nerfs. So instead of it being like a super ubiquitous and oppressive deck, it'll just be like Zoo Hunter. It'll be like Zoolock. It'll be the Hunter version of Zoolock, where it'll win 48% of its matchups. And when it does, it's going to win it by steamrolling, and then but it won't have, those cards that help it beat decks that it shouldn't, that are designed to beat it, that it's still beating. So
it's going to be so good when Rexar is gone. So Unleash the Beast. The Beast is a 6-mana Hunter spell that reads Twin Spell. Summon a 5/5 Wyvern with Rush. So I didn't look into it, but is a Wyvern a beast? This is important.
Yes.
People must know.
Yes.
A Wyvern is a beast. So with all the other beast synergy that we have, we can see how powerful this effect
Leok is
might
a Wyvern.
be. Oh, Leok is a Wyvern? I didn't even know that. Wyvern?
Yeah.
I'll say it ignorantly
tomato.
incorrect. Yeah, exactly. Tomato, potato, as they say.
Sure. Go on. I didn't mean to derail you.
No, I'll derail myself if you don't. But so it's so we can see how powerful this effect can be, especially when you start to count in the idea of Zul'jin, as Rail had said earlier. And I don't think we've explained how Twin Spell interacts with Zul'jin, but
go for it.
If you play a card with Twin Spell and then you play Zul'jin, well, Zul'jin casts that card that has Twin Spell on it. So thus, you get a copy without Twin Spell in your hand. So now, let's say you play two Unleash the Beasts, and then you play both of the copies. You've now played four Unleash the Beast. You play Zul'jin. You now get 4 5/5 Wyverns with Rush, and 2 ways to generate a 5/5 Wyvern with Rush. So this would go into a Mechathune Hunter maybe, but honestly, it's too expensive to go into a real Mechathune Hunter deck. Everyone knows there's only one way to pull that off, but nobody knows yet. But
they will soon.
Honestly, this card just isn't good. Like it costs too much. I'm not gonna build even a value deck. It's a 6-mana 5/5. I'd rather play Baited Arrow. Baited Arrow kills a thing and gives me a fresh 5/5.
Sure.
I'm not high on this card. I know some people are really high on this card, but I look at 6 mana and I'm like, dog, I can't even play both sides of it in the same turn.
Fair. I look at this card. Did we explain what the card was?
Yeah, I read it.
Okay, just making sure. I look at this card as good if you are putting Zul'jin in your deck. Without Zul'jin, I think this card is right now unplayable.
Absolutely.
By itself. If you're putting Zul'jin in the deck, then you're playing the long game. One of the things that I used to talk about a lot when in like playing Spell Hunter is when Zul'jin first came out, everybody's like, oh, you play Zul'jin first to get all the effects off, and then you play Rexar after that to get all of the beast generation value. And I'd always tell people, in my opinion, that's wrong. That's backwards. You play Zul'jin like in fatigue to get all of the super value comeback mechanics that you can get from the things like the deadly shots and filling your board back up and all this other stuff, right? Well, I think you have to think about Zul'jin kind of counterintuitively, right? When you're putting Zul'jin in your deck, you're playing the long game, right? Zul'jin isn't Rexar where you slam him down as soon as you get him and start getting that value off the hero power. Zul'jin is a card that you use to, for me, the way that I use him is to either A, come back from an unwinnable position, B, set up for lethal, or C, to win the game in the super late game with fatigue. Well, when everybody's expended all their resources, you've got this one last trump card to play, right? Those are the scenarios in which I envision building decks around Zul'jin, because you can get so much insane swing value. And if you do it once they've expended all their resources, they almost can't come back from it, right? This card fits into that nicely because you're playing super slow, super greedy. Like a 6 mana 5/5 remove a thing is bad, right? But if you're playing 6 mana remove a thing, and then you play Revenge of the Wild and you get it back, well, it's 8 mana remove a thing and have a dude on the board, and then you put both of those things in your Zul'jin package, and now when Zul'jin fires off, you've got this Unleash the Beast that summons all these things that you can then kill, and then if you do it quickly enough, you can then get them back with your Revenge of the Wild. Those are the kind of things that I think of this deck, or this spell working in that deck with. But again, it all hinges on either Revenge of the Wild or Zul'jin or both. And you have to build it into a very specific style deck, and we don't even know if that deck will work. So I like the potential of it, but it's very limited in its current form, or at least currently how it can be used. It's interesting they put it at 6 mana.
I agree.
Because that means that somewhere along the lines at playtesting, because I'm sure originally it was 5 or even 4 mana, they decided
it looks like a 5 mana card, honestly.
But at 5 mana, it was probably too effing busted. So that means that there is potential for this card to be very, very good. It's just got to be in the right deck in the right way. And because of the fact that it's like they've nerfed it in advance, knowing that if they released it at 5, which is what they probably would have wanted to do, they would have ended up nerfing it in a month or two because it was oppressive. And it's literally that close to being oppressive in my mind between being 5 and 6.
When you say 1 mana being the difference is close, I think that's insane to think. Like, honestly, 1 mana is such a huge difference. And the biggest jump the 2 biggest jumps in 1 mana is going from 0 to 1 and from 5 to 6.
Correct.
Because going from 0 to 1, now you can't play 11 of them in one turn, which I know it sounds ridiculous, but imagine Lyra or these other infinite value cards, or Gadget and Auctioneer, where you play a card, you get rewarded with a card. So you can't play 11 of them in one turn. And that's a big deal because of the percentage increase, really.
Right.
And then when you go from 5 to 6 in this game, well, you can never play 12 mana worth of stuff without, additional supporting cards, right?
Right.
So
Double coin.
You're not allowed to play this twice. And since it has Twin Spell, that's important to evaluate. And so you're spot on.
Yeah. So I think in the right meta, this card could be very, very good. But currently, it's like right there. It's right there. But that right there is huge. So
exactly, yeah.
And I think I've exhausted all the reasons why this card has potential. So I'm ready to evaluate this card. I love the idea of this card, and I think this card is something I want to test because I think it's kind of like Spellstone, right? Like it can be up there with Spellstone in how it can synergize with Zul'jin, but it's just going to take some testing and in the right deck. So I'll go first. Because of the downside of this card, though, I think it's a 3.5, and I hate to say that.
I was going to give it a 4.
Yeah,
I thought you were way higher on it than I was, dude.
I want to be. I want to be, but I'm also trying to be as objective as I can here because I understand. Like, if this was a 5 mana card, I'd be 7 all day on this card.
Yeah, easy 7 at 5.
Yeah, but that 1 mana makes that big of a difference. Now, if there are ways to cheat it out, if we discover ways to like get extra coins or make things cheaper, or they add things to the game that do that, at any point where this card can be played as a 5, or we can cheat it out as a 5 in some way, this card automatically shoots up in my mind. But right now, it's a 3.5.
I'll sit there on a 4, no matter what happens, unless this card fundamentally changes.
Right.
Like, that's overcosted cards don't get played. Right.
And that's the issue. And that's where it's at. So it's unfortunate, but I think we said our piece on anything else.
No.
Next card. This is an interesting card.
Quite.
This is an interesting card. Next card we have is a 4 mana 3/3 epic hunter minion, Arcane Fletcher. Cool art on this one as well. I really like the art on this one. It reads, whenever you play a 1-cost minion, draw a spell from your deck. Why don't you go first on this one, X?
Man, I don't even know where to start. I normally hate 4 mana 3/3s. I normally hate 3 mana 3/3s. That's why I hate 4 mana 3/3s. Because I don't think 3 mana 3/3s are good enough. Right. When you attach it to an effect that says draw, though, where you get rewarded for a card for playing a card, like I just talked about this,
I know.
where you get rewarded for a card or with a card for playing a card, it immediately becomes powerful. I play 6 mana 4/4s that reward me with a card for playing a card, which is insane. So if I played Halazzi last turn, then this turn I played Arcane Fletcher, and then I played 6 dudes. I literally just drew every spell in my deck. Now if I crashed those dudes, those little what are they called? The second half of Springpaw.
Lynxes.
I'm sorry. Yeah, Lynxes. And I crash those Lynxes because they have Rush into enemy minions, and I draw my Revenge, pop that Revenge out. I now get to do it again with all the... What?
Yeah.
I think this card has the potential to be insane.
Yeah.
I think on average, it doesn't make the cut, but its potential, like its ceiling is... Well, let's hope it doesn't get to that.
Let me ask you this, and this is coming from me, and we're talking about 100 cards here. Is this better or worse than Cult Master?
Better, easily.
That's my thought too, because that's like the clear comparison here, right? Because this is play. Like, this isn't kill, this is play, right? And Hunter has a lot of good 1-drops. It has Halazzi. It has... Most Hunter decks are running minimum of 4, sometimes 6 1-drop cards, right? Sometimes more, especially if you're playing Springpaw. You know, you've got 4 right there, right?
Yep.
So the synergy with this is really, really good. And you don't need to run a lot, right? Because it's specifically draw a spell, right? And in most mid-range or aggressive hunters specifically, you're probably not running more than, what, max 8 spells in your entire deck, maybe?
Kill Command, Unleash the Hounds, 1 copy of Revenge for this combo, so that's 5. And then an Arcane Shot or Arcane Shot duplicate, so that would be 7. Yep. Right, so 7 utility spells that I can think of off top.
Right. And you probably didn't mean Arcane Shot. You meant the new one, the Mark Shot. The
the Mark Shot.
Yeah, that's kind of the things that I was thinking about too. You know, and then you're comboing. You're basically drawing all of these damage spells, and then you play the legendary that we haven't talked about yet. You get that spell. You get that spell attack weapon out, and then you pop all those spells into their face. Right, like this sets up specifically. Because the reason why, and not like I was setting you up to trick you, because I knew what your answer would be, because you're a guru at the card game. But the reason why I asked that was for the viewers, because you're drawing specific cards. You are drawing spells. You're not just drawing cards at random. And anytime that you have a mechanic that allows you to draw specific things from your deck, there is potential to set up OTKs, combos, big potential for setting up win conditions, right? The same reason why, like mage cards that allow them to draw specifically secrets out of their deck are good, is why this is good. You know, anytime you have a very specific draw effect, it allows you to set up a specific manipulatable effect, and that is very powerful. And especially since it synergizes with what Hunter is doing already, which is playing a small number of select, highly tightly picked spells and a bunch of 1-drops that they're playing anyway. So the synergy and it just makes sense. It's a brilliantly designed card for the kind of the spell hunter, or even just regular. I mean, you don't even need the spell hunter. Chances are, if you're playing a mid-range or aggressive beast anyway, or aggressive hunter anyway, you don't even need it. You just draw, your 2 kill commands, your 2 arcane shots or whatever, and that's usually enough to finish them off with the beast that you've been playing every turn. So I mean, there's a lot of potential for this card to be just a very like rounding out card in more than one hunter deck, which I really, really like. And it works in like control decks too, because you can use this to combo with those 1-drops that you will run, even if it's only a few of them, just to get some spell draws out for your big control spells, like crushing walls, for example. Not that it exists anymore, but you know what I mean, right? Like the kind of spells that you want to use to control the game until you can do the things that you want to do. So I love the flexibility of this card. I love the design of it. Really, if you can't tell, really excited about this card a lot. I think this card's potential makes up for some of the kind of flop cards that we've seen so far. So, what do you think of this card? Is there anything you want to add before we go down to voting?
You're very optimistic.
Yeah.
for a 4-mana 3/3.
Yeah.
I'm ready to go to rating. I don't want to say much more than that about it.
Hit it. Hit your numbers.
It's a 3, dude. Like it's a 4-mana. It's a 4-mana 3/3 is conditional. You did hit on the point where when you can take a random effect, because random effects are just strictly worse than discover effects, which are strictly worse than choose, like just from the vast of anything, and you can make it consistent, it becomes better. The problem is what you have to do to make this consistent is you have to put this card in your deck.
Correct.
So not good enough.
Fair. I rated this card at a 5.5.
Oh, I thought you were much. Oh,
nope.
You were speaking its praise.
Well, I like the potential of it, but when I look at what it's actually going to fit into, I only see it fitting into 2 kinds of decks, and that's hybrid. That's a hybrid spell, like mid-range hunter, like I've been running a lot the last couple of weeks, and I see it in a spell damage deck. Those are the 2 decks I see.
You know what just came to my mind, Azrael? It compares unfavorably with Masked Contender.
You're saying that Masked Contender is better than this?
Yes.
Okay.
The Masked Contender is a 3-mana 2/4. If you control a secret, play a random secret from your deck.
Yep.
Yeah, and so I think they're close.
Sure.
And I think I would rather play the deck with the Masked Contender. And just
I would see both of those played in the same deck.
Yeah, perhaps. Yeah, even perhaps. Yeah.
I would see both of those played in the same deck, along with the hunter card that allows you to discover a spell when you have a weapon equipped. Like
also with Penguin, but the Snowflipper Penguin doesn't synergize with Arcane Fletcher. I was just naming more bad cards you could put in a deck full of 30 bad cards.
I love it, X. All right, moving on. Speaking of bad card, I mean, why don't you take this one?
Yeah, so Oblivitron, 6-mana 3/4 legendary hunter mech minion. That was a mouthful. What it reads is Death Rattle. Summon a mech from your hand and trigger its Death Rattle. Wow, this is a 6-mana 3/4. I was just bitching about a 3-mana 4/4 or 4-mana 3/3. Whatever. Those are a 4-mana 3/3. This is 6-mana 3/4, but with a decently powerful effect. And immediately it got me thinking, as it's a mech and it says summon a mech from your hand and triggers Death Rattle, my first thoughts were, well, what Death Rattle do I want to trigger from Hunter? Spider Bomb is going away. What other mechs are there? Nothing good. Well, wait, shit. Mechathoon's a mech. Does this work? Yes, it does in fact work. So if you have Mechathoon only in your hand, and you have Oblivitron on the board, and Oblivitron dies, Mechathoon comes out, Death Rattle triggers, you win the game. Because apparently Mechathoon, for some reason, is stuck in some sort of limbo where he's not in your hand and not in your hand. I don't understand the mechanics there, but no one ever said Hearthstone was close to consistent. So that's a thing. And so I started putting together this Mechathoon Hunter deck, and I realized that Oblivitron is so flippin' bad, it doesn't even fit in Mechathoon Hunter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I was just scanning through Hearthstone top decks, like looking, perusing the cards, trying to make something work with Oblivitron. And it's Azrael, please enlighten me. Where does it go?
This card. Okay, if you need the dust, this card gets dusted. If you don't need the dust, it's sitting in your collection right now. There are some good Death Rattle cards, but the thing is that is that this is a Death Rattle mech card. Okay, you're paying 6 mana for a 3/4 mech. The only card
it gives you Urzatron though.
The only card that this makes, the only combo that I can think of off the top of my head that this card makes sense for is the Mechanical Dragons.
Yep.
That's the only card that this card makes sense with, but it's going to be very hard to pull off. And it's like a worse Recruit Hunter, right? Like, I mean, I'm going to play with it because I want to see if I can make this work. And there are some like potential good Death Rattle cards that this could work with. But like, okay, what are you going to do? You're going to play this. You're going to wait till like turn 24. You're going to play this because Hunter doesn't have enough card draw to make Mechathoon work more aggressively. You're going to play this on turn 24 when you've got 3 cards left in your hand, and you're going to pull Mechathoon out. It's going to trigger the Death Rattle, which is going to do nothing because you have cards on the board or cards in your hand still. It dies. And then you use the Resurrect spell to bring it back. I don't know. It's like, it's too convoluted to make work in any consistent, or it's not a good card right now. It's just not in 100, not right now. it tends to the only like seriously that the only one I could think of to make it work is the dragon, mechanical dragon. That's it.
Yeah, and when I was
that's not even good.
When I was running through the set, mechanical dragon, Mechathune, Spider Bomb, which is going, and Ziliax were the only things that were interesting. So I started looking at trying to make it work with other mechs, like with Galvanizer, with the 1 mana mech, the Faithful Lumi, 1 mana, give a friendly mech 1/1/1, and it's going to pull these non-death rattle mechs out onto the board. You're not going to get their effect, and it's just so you can't run it in a mech deck, and then you can't run it in a combo deck.
This is another Hunter card that's being introduced that doesn't have a place in the current meta, and it feels like they're setting it because remember this year is all going to be linked together, so I have to postulate or be hopeful that the sets are going to play off of each other, possibly. So maybe this card is good in a set or two, but if we have to hold on to this card in our collection till the 3rd expansion of the year to be good, I'm going to be very pissed off because Hunter has habitually gotten terrible legendaries. Usually 4 out of 5 of the Hunter legendaries are just bad. Like what was the last good one was Katharina, right?
What are you talking about? Flux Boom Zuka is insane. It goes right to my Abominable Bowman Starliner Hunter deck. Thank you.
Anyway, so this card, we'll see a few death rattles here and there where we're going to be like, maybe, possibly, but still, it's going to be too hard to make it viable, to make it consistently viable enough to be worth it. And I think that's the end of the day. Yeah, you can make it work with things that exist in the meta, but for it to be consistently viable or competitive, no. Look for it to be featured in some X meme deck or me beating my head against the wall trying to make it work legitimately. Other than that, this card right now, currently, best case scenario, 2 out of 10.
Best case scenario, 2 out of 10.
Yeah. Moving on.
I'm gonna take my Mechathune deck. I was actually just pulling it up on my phone because laptop problems, and I want to drop it in your chat real quick.
Please drop. I was going to say when we were done with the Hunter thing as our overview, I wanted to drop it in.
I was going to say, excuse me,
nice.
No feedback, totally professional.
You're
100%.
You could drop it in now. Why don't you talk about it before we move on to the last card? If you want to talk about it real quick, because he actually showed me this the other day when we were doing one of our pre-production meetings for this show, and he mentioned it. And he showed it to me. Guys, I'm going to be honest with you. This actually looks like a viable Mechathune Hunter deck. And I hate introducing this because I hate Mechathune decks, but it was so cool and so clever, and I haven't seen anybody else that has done this. I got to give him some props and let him talk about it for a minute. So please, X, say your piece on this deck because it's actually pretty cool. Why don't you walk him through how it works?
Sure. Okay. So the combo to get, because this is the number one thing. How are you going to get Mechathune to go off in Hunter, especially when Hunter's mark just got nerfed? Well, you see, if you play Galvanizer and discount your Mechathune twice to 8 mana, you can then use this card called Goblin Prank, which is a card that pretty much everybody overlooked from, I think, Witchwood. It says, give a friendly minion +3/+3 and rush. It dies at the end of this turn. So you now have a 10 mana combo to play and kill Mechathune. However, we know Hunter can't draw. We're the damned. It's just not a thing that happens. Oh, wait, but they introduced Master's Call. Oh, but Master's Call is only beast. However, if you only have 3 mechs in your deck full of beasts, for example, if you have Springpaw, Timberwolf, Hunting Mastiff, I'm not looking at the deck list exactly right now, I totally am, Starving Buzzard, Halotzi, Evil Cable Rat, which we haven't gone over yet, which gives you Lackey, Henchclan Hogsey, which we haven't gone over yet, also a beast, Vicious Scalehide, Lifesteal, help you sustain. You can also hit it with that Toxic Arrow you're running, your Vicious Scalehide, in order to kill any threat for a low cost of 2 mana. Tracking gets rid of 3 cards out of your deck. After on average, we'll say Revenge of the Wild draws you 4 cards, because one time it'll go off and the other time it won't.
Right.
Just fair to be assessment. Fair. We are now, the only card that we're really, really upset about playing is the Starving Buzzard. But we're playing the Starving Buzzards, 2 of them, specifically because our the Halotzi and the Springpaws. Because if on turn 7 you're playing a 3/2 and 2 1/1s and drawing 2 cards in a Mechathune deck, normally that's good enough to still maintain the current state.
Right.
You're not going to be pulling ahead, but you're not going to be falling behind.
Right.
It's going to maintain the current state of the game. And so all of these things put together, plus a Revenge of the Wild for your Hunting Mastiff, which Hunting Mastiff is the card that is 2-mana, 2-1 beast with Russian Echo. Play that with Revenge of the Wild. Like, there's just so many good synergies available to fit into this deck that ends with a Mechathune that it actually looks okay to me. Like, I'm not mad at it. There's a couple changes I'm already thinking about making, but I want to play it as is first. It looks cool.
Yeah, it's when you showed it to me, it for a first draft with no testing, it looked like it had some legitimate potential. But the thing that I thought was really clever, and one of the things that I love the most about your ability to see synergies and construct decks, is that you found a win condition in a deck that in a class that most people didn't even consider there to be a win condition. And like,
Thanks.
Yeah, and that to me just struck me as so clever that I thought it was worth sharing, because I looked at it right away and I was like, okay, Hunter, how's he gonna make this work? And I'm a guy that played 3,000 games of Hunter last year, and I was like, wait, how's he gonna make this work? And I was like, oh yeah, Goblin pranks it. The guy's a genius. So well done. I as much as I hate Mechathune decks, like, well done. That's a clever idea. So I like that a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah. So chat, click on it, give it a try, have some fun with it day one. It'll be a good time. I promise you'll only lose like 3 or 4 ranks before you give up on it. Or you'll write it to legend because it actually has potential. Let's move on to the last Hunter card. If you're ready, unless you want to say anything else about your... Okay.
No, we hit the Oblivitron, which is where I kind of wanted to input my the Mechathune idea.
Perfect time, yeah, because that is a component to that combo.
It's not, and that was why I wanted to put it in there, because it is so bad it doesn't even fit in one deck that you could even imagine it would ever be in.
Yeah, you did mention that. I'm sorry. Yep, I actually screwed that up. I'm sorry.
No, it's all good, brother.
The last card that we have to talk about in Hunter is the Varisa Windrunner, which is the final legendary for Hunter. 7 mana, 5/6. With Battlecry, equip Thoradal the Star's Fury. Thoradal the Star's Fury is a 3 mana, 3/2 weapon that reads, when you attack, after you attack with this weapon, you have +2 spell damage for the turn.
It's a 2/3 weapon, yeah?
I'm sorry, 2/3 weapon. I apologize. Yes, thank you. 2/3 weapon, which we've talked about a little bit before, or I talked about a little bit before. Opens up the spell damage Hunter archetype. And first of all, this is just a cool legendary. Like, I love this legendary. This is one of the most interesting legendaries I think they've printed in a long time. You had some interesting comments on the weapon, though, that you had mentioned in the last show. Before I say too much else, you want to share those so people can have some context about what we're talking about?
Yeah, so when I saw that Thoradal, the weapon that Azrael just described, I was like, why does it cost 3 mana? I was like, a 3 mana 2/3 weapon is already worth more, and then with that effect, spell damage +2 is insane. I think fairly costed. I would play it. I would play it in my deck at 3 mana. Like, it would take up a card slot on its own at 3 mana. 4 mana, I still think it's good. At 5 mana is where it hits that borderline of, I probably shouldn't play it, because it's such a powerful card. It is able to kill 3 minions by itself, keeping the board clear while you have the spell damage, just smacking the enemy in the head with your spells. And we already talked about how good the Hunter spells are. So it led me to believe that we're going to have something coming up that interacts with the mana cost of a weapon. Otherwise, they would have costed it fairly, because if you look at it, the other powerful weapons that have been introduced in the game as a result of minions, for example, the Atiesh from what's that guy's? Yeah, exactly. Or no, I was talking about the mage.
Oh yeah. From that was from Karazhan.
Yeah, a million years ago. It was but even that, it was attached to a 7 or 8 cost minion, and it didn't really do much. It was kind of bad, but it was fairly costed. It was a fairly costed weapon at 5 mana. Just in, like, that's kind of their standard anyway. So the fact that this one is 3 mana kind of gives me, it opens up my imagination. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Opens them in.
Let me ask you something before again we go too much into this. This card by itself, just with the effect as it is, with a standard, just kind of like the standard ubiquitous cards that are in every Hunter's deck, like Kill Command, or like Flanking Shot was, for example. With kind of the standard cards that you can just imagine being like in most Hunters, regardless of what style they are, is this card good enough to make just any Hunter list?
Any hunter list that plays Baited Arrow, it fits into. Any hunter deck that can afford playing a 7 mana non-beast and also plays Kill Command, which I know that's a lot of conditionals, so you'll see how it's probably not going to fit into the same decks that Kill Command does.
Yep.
But if all of those conditions are met and Kill Command's in it, then it fits, because spell damage +2 that's just a huge effect.
It's gross.
And then when you look at the 1 mana deal 1 damage twin spell that we talked about first,
yep,
it also looks pretty good because that's 2 mana 6 damage, as you were talking about.
Yeah, it's it's
thickness.
Whoopsie, rapid fire. Sorry about that.
Yeah, it's all good.
Click the wrong button.
So, I think that no for most of them, but any hunter deck with all of those cards that you're talking about that wants to win the game after turn 8, then yes, this goes in there.
Yep, I agree. I think that people are going to make this fit into Hunter decks. I think that this card, the value that you're going to get off of the weapon alone, people are going to make this fit into anything other than aggressive or mid-range beast focused decks. Any other deck, they're going to try to put this in, just because of the fact that rapid fire exists, that Baited Arrow exists and can go face, and that Kill Command exists and usually goes face. That alone right there, I mean, think about it. When you play it if you play it with Kill Command, it's like firing off 2 Kill Commands now becomes the same as firing off 3 Kill Commands, essentially. It almost doubles the damage of Baited Arrow, and it triples the damage of one of the rapid fire twin spell effects. It is a super, super potent spell, and it's a decent body. It's not a great body. It's a 7 mana 5/6, but it's a decent body when you're also getting a 3 charge weapon on top of it, right? I mean, now they have to deal with the fact that you're going to deal 6 damage from the weapon plus an additional, potentially, I mean, think about it, over 3 turns, that could be an additional 10 damage on average in spell damage over 3 turns. And then on top of it, they have this 5/6 body to deal with. I think that just because the overall value that you get from this, it's going to make its way into everything that is not mid-range or aggro hunter, period. And like you pointed out, any deck that wants to win after turn 7, which those decks don't, it's going to be in 100% of those. Go ahead.
One interesting interaction that I haven't thought of until like 16 moments ago,
right,
was if you swing with Thoradol and then play Zul'jin afterwards, all of those spells get the spell damage attached.
That is
incredible.
Amazing, yeah. And unless you are me and you Hunter's Mark yourself in the face twice.
Hunter's Mark your own face.
I mean, Kill Command yourself in the face, and then Baited Arrow yourself in the face, all in the same one Zul'jin. But whatever. But for everybody else, it's going to work great.
Exactly.
There are a lot. I could talk about this card for a long time, and I do want to give it its due justice here. But I think overall, it's a pretty straightforward card. I don't want to sit here and theory craft all day long. I think in practice, it's a very straightforward card. I think I feel pretty comfortable that we're in agreement here of when and how this card is going to get played. So I'm comfortable moving on to the scoring of this card, unless you think that we missed anything important to talk about.
At 7 mana, the 5/6 body is understated. The Thoradol is pretty cool. I give it a 6. Like it's a good card, but it's not going to be super prevalent, and it's never going to make me rage quit.
I think that's fair. I'm a little higher on it, and again, I want to point out there that yes, I am a Hunter fanboy, but I'm a little higher on it, probably because I've spent a lot of time thinking about it, and I tend to grade on the side of optimism or maximum possible potential. I think if this card lives up to the potential that I see for it, it's going to be an 8. Or better. Might even be a 9.
God.
If it lives up to the potential, if we can find a really optimized list for it, but I think I'm comfortable saying right now, because that involves a little bit of wishful thinking. I think I'm comfortable saying that this is a solid 7.5. Solid.
If this is a 9, the meta is going to be harsh.
Yeah, I think this is a solid 7.5, just because I know how potent Spell Hunter is right now. Mm-hmm. Yes, it's losing a lot of key things, but there's enough ways to get extra value with things like rapid fire and the discover mechanics and the spell mechanics, and this works with all things. Like this will work with like anything that is technically spell damage, right? And if you can find clever ways to get that extra value out of there, I mean, there are ways that this can be manipulated to get more value out that we're not thinking about right now, that I have to sit down and actually chew into. So like I said, it's got a high potential, but even it's another high ceiling, high floor card. Even in a deck that this doesn't belong in, playing a 7 mana 5/6 that also gives you a free weapon. It equips it for free, which is 3 mana worth of stuff. So really, you're getting kind of a 5/6 body is worth what? 5 mana, right?
5/6. That's a pit fighter. So yeah,
it's worth 5 mana. So you're getting 8 mana worth of value for 7 mana. I mean, it's not terrible.
I agree.
And so, like I said, just because of that, its floor is pretty good, pretty high. So that's why I come up with the 7.5, and I think it has a lot of potential that I'm gonna have a lot of fun experimenting with in the very near future.
Oh yeah, I can't wait to watch and see what you got going with this one.
And same for you, my friend. All right, well, we've gotten through about 3 hours now. We are roughly almost 40% the way through the show. We're going to take a quick, probably 2-minute break so that we can run to the bathroom. I can refill my fluids. You've been noticing I've been chugging a lot of fluids because talking dries your mouth out. So we're going to take a 2-minute break, and then we will be right back after that, and we will get started on the next set of cards. You know what I'm trying to say.
What are the next three? What are the next three classes for those wondering?
The next 3 classes that we are going to look at are I want to give you the exact order on them. I know what the classes are, but I want to give you the correct order on them. So give me 1 second here. Let me bring up the list. It is Warrior,
ooh,
Shaman,
ooh,
and Warlock.
Ooh.
And Warlock especially is one I think we're going to have some interesting conversations on. So we'll be back in 2 minutes with Warrior. See you guys real soon.